Happy Thursday, everybody. Welcome to the Sean O'Connell Show. Glad to have you with us. We're going to do our best to give you a little bit of entertainment, a little bit of information on the show today. Gordy Chiesa is going to swing by in studio for an hour, give us his insights on everything going on in the NBA and with the Utah Jazz. Immediately after Gordy, we've got Gavin Peterson, Utah women's basketball head coach, as they await Selection Sunday. And then we'll check in on the Utah Hockey Club with Brogan Houston. Brogan, an insider for UHC, who had a much-needed victory last night. The Puck Lake City playoff push is official here on ESPN 700. They are now 2 points out of the final wild card spot. Anaheim immediately behind them in the playoff race, 2 points behind Utah. So you could not cede any points to the Ducks, and you can't afford to let Vancouver, Calgary, etc., St. Louis keep outpacing you. Much-needed victory on home ice for the Utah Hockey Club last night. So we'll get to all of that as Dylan Gunther continues, man. Just a scoring machine. Conference basketball tournaments happening right now. I've never seen it called. Have I been living under a rock? The Little Dance?
No, I've heard March Mayhem, the Mayhem before the Madness.
Okay,
I've heard
I like that
before on ESPN, but that seems to have gone away. No, I've never heard of the Little Madness.
I saw a headline today that there's like 40 games happening in the Little Dance. It's like,
the Little Dance.
What's the Little Dance?
No.
Don't call it that.
Is the Little Dance homecoming? Should we call it that? The prom is, you got prom, the big dance, and you got homecoming, little dance. I don't know. That's
a school by school thing, isn't it? Isn't homecoming bigger at some schools
yeah,
and prom bigger at other
it
schools?
probably is. At my school, it was, and we actually didn't call it prom. We had junior prom.
Okay.
And we had senior ball.
Oh, all right.
So prom was senior ball, but then junior prom was
we had junior
had the prom name.
Prom.
That was also a bigger. Those were the
Very
two
fancy.
biggest dances.
We did ours at the Utah State Capitol.
Oh,
you talk about feeling fancy. That's the thing, man.
yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
guess who
St. George's equivalent would be the Tabernacle, I suppose. With that, they don't have enough. They don't have like a ballroom to.
You want to take a wild guess who the 2001 junior prom king of Jordan High School was?
Is this a humble brag?
Just
Sean
take a guess.
O'Connell?
I just want you to take a guess. I just want you to maybe guess.
Is it that guy behind the mic there I'm looking at who's
no big deal?
Okay.
No big deal.
And you still couldn't get a D1 offer.
that was I still put that at the top of my resume.
Is senior prom king?
Yes.
Prom king?
Yeah. Jordan High School prom king. That might be why people sometimes give me feedback like you're listing some inappropriate accomplishments on your resume here.
Hey, it's not. At least you're not like Dwight Schrute and putting your karate experience on your resume.
Yeah, I also do that.
Prom
actually.
King's. Oh, really?
I actually.
Well,
also
that's
do that.
a little bit more relevant to your job experience.
Anyway, BYU and Iowa State in action right now. 7:20 left in the first half. BYU is up 32-29. The 4 versus 5 battle as the Big 12 tournament is taking place on what I think is it's one of those courts that you just wish they hadn't gotten so creative with the court design. I assume most people listening to the show have actually tuned in at least for highlights of Big 12 conference basketball. And the conference unveiled this new floor for the Big 12 basketball championships, the Phillips 66 Big 12 championship down at T-Mobile. It's not easiest on the eyes. It's James and I were discussing this before the show. It's not as bad as like the Oregon Ducks floor, which is too artsy, too fartsy, has trees everywhere, but they're trees that are just like different shades of wood, and it just obscures too much of the lines and the key and the three-point arc and all that kind of stuff. This has the Roman numeral 12 all over it, like a repetitive background, like it's some kind of Louis Vuitton bag. I don't love it. It's not my favorite floor. But that's what you got to watch these championships on. Iowa State just hit a 3 and now up 35-32.
Yeah, I think where I've landed, and I got to shout out my wife for help with this. I think I've landed, like, why not just make the key the bunch of Roman numeral 12s in the key, and then leave like a gray. You can still do the gray for the rest of the court and just leave it plain, right? Or maybe the wood. You have the wood look in a gray color. I don't know. The all over the court except for the key is opposite to me.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. The key itself is just black, and then the court has the pattern. The alternative probably would have been better. Back-to-back three-pointers for Iowa State now to take a lead, forcing a BYU timeout. So we'll keep you updated a little bit on that game as it happens. I had a conversation yesterday that led me to make a couple of phone calls and have more conversations yesterday as we're continuing our enthusiasm and our excitement for Alex Jensen being the new head coach for University of Utah men's basketball. There's a lot of heavy lifting to be done in this program. You know that we were the first ones to put it out there that, hey, this is happening. And then it was called a little premature by people who are, important. And 2 days later, Pete Thamel decided to confirm what we had already told you. And then it became official for everyone. And you got to let the ink dry. I get a little bit overeager. You got to let the ink dry. In any case, Alex Jensen is coming to the University of Utah, returning to the program to be the head coach of his alma mater at a place where he has a great legacy as a player, not just because of the wins, but because of his reputation. He was a hustle type player. He was a blue collar. He was a work ethic. He was a defensive grinder. He was all the things that seem like they fit what you want to be, not just in Utah basketball, but in Utah athletics. And I've already told you dozens of times that this is monumental for Utah basketball because not only did you zero in on your guy and then you went out and you got that guy, which, to be fair, like UCLA basketball wasn't able to do with their most recent hire. Now, are they swinging at, like, I don't want to mix metaphors here. I was about to say, are they swinging at bigger fish? That's not. Are they attacking more prime targets, more of the, like, everybody wants this coach? When you're at UCLA, yeah, you can do that. When you're at Michigan State, yeah, you can do that. When you're at North Carolina, you can do that. But it is very meaningful that Utah basketball, that department, the boosters, the university president, everybody on campus wanted the same guy, all the way down to, like, the 12-year-old fan probably wanted the same guy to be the head coach, and you got him. And that's not as easy to execute as we probably think it is because, hey, it happened for us, so of course you can make that happen. But having these conversations yesterday, a surprising name emerged as something that was as a person, as a figure who was actually instrumental in making this thing happen. And the first time I heard it, I was just like, I don't know if I believe that. It's like too much of a Hollywood story. It's like too much of a when you make this
too scripted,
when you make this movie, it's the based on true events. You know what I mean? It's the thing you put in, you embellish to make it seem more wholesome and more, like, digestible.
Yeah, it's not the actual truth. It's a little creative license.
Yeah, that's what it felt like to me. And I'm just like, okay.
Sure.
So, I fire off another text or two, and it's just like, yeah, I heard the same thing. And it's like, okay, well, that's not confirmation. So I make another phone call. It's like, yeah, no, that's what I was told. I'm like, okay, so maybe there's.
Let me talk to 1,000 more people, and then I might believe it.
So then I surveyed 1.1 million Utah. No, but I was just like, okay, so I'm kind of like, I'm living my life, right? I'm at home. I'm dealing with my kids. I'm talking to my wife about the stuff that we got coming up, and I'm just trying to, like, okay, is that too good to be true? Is that person who we already have on this crazy pedestal, is that person really reaching out and touching the other athletic departments and saying, let me bestow upon you my influence here for basketball to make this thing that you need to happen. Let me help you make it happen.
You have my blessing to take the job.
It's just, it's like, is this so? And I'm talking about, and I'm operating under the assumption now, after the conversations I had, that there is some credence to this. Now, I'm not breaking any news. I'm not telling you like the actual account of events because I don't have enough information to describe it like that.
We can't break news every day, people. Sorry.
Yeah. Although we're going to try, hint, hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. We're going to do our best when the next big breaking news for Utah basketball happens and we know something's coming.
Let's just say stay tuned for tomorrow's show, guys.
Stay tuned. Stay tuned. But I'm operating under the assumption that this story is at least based on true events. Can we do that together, James?
Yeah.
All right. All of you out there listening, this is Rudy.
Yeah,
this is The Blind Side featuring Michael Orr, who now rejects all of the stuff that happened in that movie.
That's too bad because that was such a good movie when you didn't know all of that. Yeah. And now it's like I can't bring myself to watch that movie.
Yeah, you can't watch the movie now.
Even though you know that every based on a true story movie, there's some creative license. It's just once you find out all the details, at least from one person's side, it kind of ruins it.
When you find out that there's actual lawsuits going back and forth between
rough for the rewatchability
and Michael Orr.
Anyway,
in any case,
we digress.
So we're operating under that. Okay, this is at least based on true events, given what I've been able to deduce and the conversations I've been able to try and dig up. Because I'm trying to learn my lessons here that you can't just run with the first thing you hear. Kyle Whittingham apparently was pretty impactful in making Alex Jensen comfortable with taking this Utah job. The based on true events, put it in the movie script account that I got was that Alex Jensen and Kyle Whittingham had a long discussion about the actual challenges, the actual reality of working under high expectation, high scrutiny at a place like the University of Utah, what the resources actually look like, and that Kyle Whittingham's perspective on this helped make Alex Jensen comfortable enough that he was ready to sign and take that gig. That is beyond belief for me. I believe it, but that is just absolutely incredible. That is spectacular stuff. That if there was any waffling at all, and look, I think Alex Jensen wanted to take the job at his alma mater, but if there was any trepidation, if there was any barrier to entry for him at all, that Kyle Whittingham, the head football coach, is the one who helped to knock down those walls. Yes, that Kyle Whittingham, the guy who's already going to have the statue built and who went through a complicated offseason but is the godfather of Utah athletics as we know it right now, that Kyle Whittingham reached out and touched basketball and said, we want you here. You're going to like it here. Don't worry about this. Don't worry about that. And again, I don't have specifics of exactly what Alex Jensen may or may not have been worried about. But you probably can hear the same things that I hear, and the grapevine will tell you this or that. And I got enough information to satisfy me that at least some of this, where there's smoke in this story, there's at least a little bit of fire. And whether it was a long conversation like I was told it was, or it was an email, or it was a text message, or a couple exchanges back and forth, or whatever it was, that Kyle Whittingham helped get this Alex Jensen hire across the finish line. And that, my friends, is storybook stuff for Utah athletics. That's as good as it gets in the 2025. All that matters is money. All that matters is business. All that matters is the X's and O's and the players, the Jimmies and Joes. All that matters is winning. That's as good as it gets from the college atmosphere, culture, university. This university is special and different sort of narrative. That's as good as it gets. That Kyle Whittingham, who does not attend a lot of Runnin' Utes basketball games, newsflash, but obviously cares about the success of everything that happens at the University of Utah and certainly about the players in the department and his bosses are trying to make this thing happen. And Taylor Randall and Mark Harlan are trying to get Alex Jensen's signature on a piece of paper, get that ink to dry. And if there's a barrier, Kyle Whittingham is like, hey, here's what it's really like. According to the sources I have, hashtag sources, Kyle Whittingham was able to put some of the fears to rest or to assuage some of the doubts that may have existed in the mind of Alex Jensen and say, hey, I know what it's actually like for 21, 22 years now. I know what it's like to fight these battles as a head coach. And basketball and football are certainly very different. But I know what it's like to have top 25 expectations without top 25 resources. I know what it's like to have conference championship expectations without the blank check that some of our competitors have to make those conference championships reality. I know what it's like to recruit players to what is still a unique culture in a unique state, in a unique society here in Salt Lake City. We get desensitized to just how different Salt Lake City is to the rest of the country because, yeah, there's more common ground than there are differences, but there are some big, significant differences in Utah at large and certainly still even in Salt Lake City, although Salt Lake is the community that is most like the rest of the country. And the further out you go, the more rural you go, the more unique Utah gets again, the more homogenized Utah gets, the more whitewashed Utah gets. And sometimes that's not a good thing for college sports. There's obviously, Utah State has done a great job of being an outlier in that regard. BYU right now is playing as a 4 seed in the Big 12 tournament, trailing by 7 after a made 3 to Iowa State. But the point stands that it is a little bit different to be navigating, and it's true for every program at every university. There's always something unique about your niche. Utah, the University of Utah and Utah football and Utah basketball occupy a niche that is pretty singular to this university and certainly to this state. And this state occupies a niche that is still singular in the United States of America. And there's no better person on campus right now to talk to and say, what's it like being a head coach in this department? Here are my concerns now. What would you say about these concerns? I didn't get to listen in. I didn't get the transcript. I don't know exactly how the conversation went, but I have been told by several different people that Kyle Whittingham actually had a pretty significant impact on making or allowing the final decision for Alex Jensen to be made.
Hey,
love it.
We don't have to have the transcript. We don't have to have listened in to know if that's the result. He must have given him some things that calmed his mind. If he had any kind of thought that, hey, I might not want this job. Obviously, whatever Witt said was effective in helping him realize he did want this job.
Again, we're doing this through the based on true events. It's this maybe this is the equivalent of every Notre Dame player going in and putting the jersey on the desk of Coach Devine, and it's just like that. It didn't happen like that. Okay, nobody on the team says it happened like that. That was a script writing thing. But what I picture is Kyle Whittingham being a dude who gets the phone call or maybe makes the phone call. Hey, what's standing in your way? Well, I'm worried about the NIL thing. Hey, we've done a pretty good job. Look what just happened. Look at how many teams, and he has the specifics, by the way. Here's how many teams wanted Spencer Fano. Here's the kind of money that was being thrown at Spencer Fano, a potential All-American tackle. And this is what we had to do to keep him. And this is what the university came up with. This is what the collective came up with. And so that can happen for us. And again, Alex Jensen and Kyle Whittingham are both smart enough to know that those numbers aren't going to match up. They're not going to line up directly. You're not going to get as much money for Utah basketball as you get for Utah football. So if that was a question, Kyle Whittingham's the guy who can say, hey, I had 4 SEC schools trying to get Smith Snowden out of here, and this is how we kept him. Yes, with some NIL. Yes, with some culture stuff. Yes, with some promises. Yes, with the NFL development that we can offer, especially for defensive backs. How are you going to counter that? And so Alex Jensen, again, this is all conjecture by me, probably can think about something like that and say, all right, well, I've been told I'll get some NIL support, and I know what kind of culture I want to create, and I myself have spent the last 20 years working in the NBA. I can tell these guys what it takes to be an NBA player.
Absolutely.
I can be the reason these guys know how to develop themselves into NBA players, how to practice like one, how to watch film like one, how to work out like one, how to eat like one, how to spend time in the training room like one. So I'm just picturing this conversation, and it makes too much sense, James, for it not to have happened, at least in some way, because Kyle Whittingham has been there for so long, and he's been through so many iterations of Utah athletics, and he's adapted pretty darn well, even as an old school guy, to this new landscape. He's more of an old school guy than Alex Jensen is, certainly.
Absolutely.
Kyle Whittingham was already on the staff when Alex Jensen was a player at Utah.
Yeah.
So for him to be able to be like, look, and by the way, what we know about Kyle Whittingham, and we've known him a long time now, is that he's not the salesman type who's going to tell you little fibs and little white lies and embellish things.
Give it to you straight.
He's going to shoot you blunt and straight. And just, if you're calling up and just being like, hey, man, I don't know if this fan base is going to support us unconditionally. Kyle Whittingham's going to be like, they're not.
Yeah.
They don't. You start losing games, and even after you're here 20 years, people are going to be like, it's time for you to be done.
Yeah.
That happened to Kyle Whittingham this year. He's not going to, sugarcoat things. So he's exactly the right guy to talk to, and he's exactly the right guy to ask. And he's exactly the right guy to link someone up with. And it sounds like that's exactly what happened. I'm getting audio.
Yeah,
in any case,
I heard a little bit of that too. It's not from us anyway.
Oh, it's
I
fine.
think it went away.
51-49, by the way, Iowa State, BYU right now.
And
so
another barn burner maybe between these two.
I don't know if everyone else is as fired up about this idea as I am. I got the news shortly after the show yesterday and started to kind of try to chase it down myself. And it's not the same thing as breaking, hey, Alex Jensen is coming back to Utah. But for me, it's like, this is awesome.
It's a cool story, and it's something that if the Utah football or the Runnin' Utes social media team wants to, if they wanted to, they could make a little dramatized version of this to put out there. It's that kind of it's not exactly a movie. But it's a cool story to try to sell people, to sell the national media when we know SID's part of their job is to give the announcers some talking points. Hey, here's some facts about the program. This is one of those things that would be a cool thing to say to hear Roxy Bernstein on ESPN, a good friend of the program, say, yeah, did you know that Kyle Whittingham helped push this over the line, helped Alex Jensen feel comfortable taking this job?
His press conference is introductory pressers on Monday, right?
Monday night. So
okay.
We can that's something that we can probably both make it to. Usually these are midday things, so we have to just talk about it as it's going on.
I like this.
Yeah, night thing, we can probably make it to that.
Okay, so I'm picturing in my mind right now the actual Alex Jensen is sitting there in Dallas, all right, palatial estate.
They could get you to play him maybe, just a little grayer than Alex's beard, but you got the same kind of beard as
Which
Alex.
is actually messed up because Alex is older than me, and my beard is a lot grayer than his.
Get a little touch,
just for men. Yeah.
You could play Alex in that video.
Okay, here's how I'm picturing it, James. Close your eyes with me. And okay. Alex Jensen is sitting there.
You two close your eyes while we talk about it.
And if you're driving, don't close your eyes.
Yeah, that's true.
Alex is sitting
Good call.
at his his palatial Dallas estate, and he's like just agonizing over the papers right there in front of him. All right, we're not e-signing anything.
I'm seeing a lot of glass windows
Okay.
in this estate as I picture it. Yeah.
His lovely wife is there, kind of observing silently, there for support, and he's just there's sweat dripping down his temple, and he's just like He can't get himself to sign, James, okay? He's got the pen in his hand, he's got the papers,
maybe.
and he just can't get himself to sign it. He doesn't know why. He just I'm ready, but I'm not ready, okay? And then he keeps picking up his phone and looking at it and putting it back down. Picking up his phone and looking at it, putting it back down. And then he picks up the pen again, and he puts it on the paper, but he's still shaking a little bit. And he puts the pen down, and he picks up his phone again. And then he heaves a deep sigh, and his wife says, "Do it, Alex. Call him. Call him." And he's like, "All right."
And the audience is like, "Call who?
Call who? Call who?
Oh, my gosh.
Who's he calling?
Who's he going to call?"
Right?
Not Ghostbusters. Okay, moving on.
And then Alex Jensen brings the phone up to his cheek. All right. You hear the ringing on the other line, just faintly. You hear the ringing.
Ring.
And then you hear somebody pick up, and it's that no-nonsense, sort of a curt manner of speaking. There's no fluff. There's no frills.
Alex Jensen, what do you want?
Yeah. Alex Jensen, what can I do for you?
Because they definitely have each other's numbers saved in their phone.
Yeah, and another big sigh from Alex Jensen. He goes, "Hey, Coach Witt, I just want to ask you a couple of questions." End scene. You cut it right there, okay? We don't get to see the actual questions. We don't get to know exactly what's on Alex Jensen's
and a graphic
mind.
that says, "Welcome, Alex Jensen."
And then
University of Utah.
You fade back in, and it is the introductory presser, and it is Alex Jensen. He's there. He's now back at his alma mater and standing in the back of the room, arms folded, okay? He's not dressed up. He's just off the treadmill. He's just off the stair climber.
Yeah.
Kind of watching in the wings.
Utah Under Armour shirt. Oh.
Kyle Whittingham. Everyone else is asking their questions. We're there in the media. We got the little press tag tucked in our hats, okay? And Kyle Whittingham, the camera goes to Kyle Whittingham standing in the back of the room, arms folded, all right? Burly forearms for a man in his 60s, and he's sweat-sodden from that time on the stair climber, and he just gives like a nod of approval and walks away into the shadows before Alex Jensen even finishes the presser. That's the movie.
You're welcome, University of Utah social media team.
Oof. You see what we did?
That was amazing. We just storyboarded that whole thing for him.
You're welcome,
for
everybody.
Free. We're not even going to ask for anything for that.
Welcome.
Go ahead and use it.
Go ahead and use it, but also, Cooper Flag rolled an ankle? Am I just catching up on this? Man, distracted when you have a TV in front of you.
That is, I was about to say not a big deal. Huge deal. That's a huge deal.
In any case, excitement for the University of Utah men's basketball program, and even more so, even another little wrinkle, little layer to the onion, if Kyle Whittingham had anything to do with it at all, like I'm hearing he did. That much better.
And when the Runnin' Utes win a national championship under Alex Jensen, Witt gets a ring too for that, just for that conversation.
Absolutely, yes. Wait, then does Alex Jensen get a ring if Utah football wins a national championship?
Well,
are they that intertwined?
Unless Alex talked Witt off the ledge of retiring, then okay, sure he gets one. But I don't think so.
Okay,
unfortunately.
10 years down the line, Alex Jensen, Kyle Whittingham co-hosting a podcast together, just debunking all of this stuff.
It wasn't even a phone call, actually.
He's like,
no part of that was true.
Nothing happened. It's the exact same thing as all the old Notre Dame players now laughing about that Rudy scene.
Yeah.
That's what's going to happen when Utah social media team puts this thing out.
The guy's name wasn't even Rudy. It was Mitchell.
Oh, man. Our show today, every day, brought to you by our friends at Les Schwab Tires. Make sure that you're listening, by the way, live when you can on the ESPN 700 app. If you haven't downloaded that on your phone, you can tell your smart speaker to play ESPN 700. You can watch us, and you're going to want to do so now that Gordy Chiesa is joining us in a few minutes in studio. ESPN 700 Sports Utah on YouTube. The ESPN700sports.com webpage has a podcast tab on demand. You can do it on the ESPN 700 app. There's no excuse for you not to listen every day, all the time. You can search Sean O'Connell Show wherever you get your podcasts. And before I take a break and we come back with Gordy Chiesa, put this number in your phone, 801-839-4501. What you have right now is a little bit of false spring going on in Utah. We get the warm weather, then you get the windstorm yesterday, and now some rain. You know what is the worst thing for your roof? Precipitation and moisture after a windstorm. I can say that from experience. So the wind comes in and it rips off any of the loose old shingles. It exposes the cracks and the chinks in the armor of that roof. And then in comes the rain, in comes the snow, and then the water is in your house instead of on your roof outside where it's supposed to be. 801-839-4501. That's the solution for all of these potential problems. That's Top Local Roofing. Justin Cunningham, our friend at Top Local Roofing, certified by the Better Business Bureau. They'll work all up and down the Wasatch Front. Top Local Roofing, 801-839-4501. Fix the problem before it's a real problem. 801-839-4501, Top Local Roofing. Gordy Chiesa in studio for the next hour. Don't go anywhere. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on a Thursday. ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. You heard it from the big voice guy, Gordy Chiesa, in studio with us on the Sean O'Connell Show for the next hour. Gordy, welcome again. How are you?
Sean, I'm doing fine. Thank you.
The windstorm, how bad was it in your
Bad.
mouth of the canyon environs?
Yeah, very much. Yeah, I live in the mountains and it's windy up there, and your point is well taken about your roof and stuff. One time during the playoff in 2000, the Jazz were playing the Dallas Mavericks in a hard-fought series, which the Jazz lost, and it was so windy, these burst winds, that my roof fell off. Part of my roof fell off.
Oh, no.
So that night was we saw. Thank God it stopped raining. But that night, my young children at that time, they thought it was really cool looking up into the sky with the house being exposed. And I trying to explain to them so foolishly, this is bad. This is not, this is not good. So the starlight we blew off of the roof because that's how powerful it is. So wind and rain and water, it's forces.
Kids are different, man. Kids are funny. Like, this is awesome. I can see from my room into the sky, and you as a dad are just like, this is terrible.
This is terrible.
It cost me a fortune.
Yeah, and also it was during the playoffs too, so it was even more magnified.
Wow. All right. So Gordy, Utah Jazz, another loss, 7 in a row now, I believe, that the Utah Jazz have dropped, and getting closer to being tied for the worst record in the NBA, which, of course, as we've talked about so many times, is just fine in this 2024-2025 season. But the more interesting bit of news that we got was that the Jazz have been fined $100,000 for sitting Lauri Markkanen. This, of course, under the NBA's new player participation rules. A former All-Star like Lauri Markkanen is expected to participate in home games and in a certain number of road games. And whether you report that player as being injured or not is always obviously going to affect things. But it sounds like the Jazz got ratted out, and Lauri Markkanen sat a game or two too many for the NBA, so they fined the Jazz $100,000, Gordy.
Yes, he sat out 9 straight games, and he does have a bad back. So that's part of the concern. Here's the rules are. Based on with helpful Sean, the TV partners, the one the star players to play. So here's a star player as far as interpretation. Any player that has made the All-Star team or was voted All-Pro, meaning the top 15 players in the NBA, the previous 3 years, they cannot set out a road game unless they're documentary injured, and so. Lauri Markkanen made the All-Star team back in 2023, and well deserved. He does have back issues. The Jazz held him out, and then the NBA decided that we think he should be able to play, so they fined him $100,000. My question is always most teams do the exact same thing. Why the Jazz?
Yeah, why the Jazz?
Yeah, why the Jazz? In other words, the other teams have the exact same mandate and what they do as far as what's best for the franchise, but they called out the Jazz. So we'll find out in the next, we'll say, 2 weeks of why this happened.
And I have to make this point, and I want to make sure I come off the right way because I'm a huge Lauri Markkanen fan. I have a ton of respect for his game. I have a ton of respect for the way he comports himself as far as we know away from the floor. He's a great representative of the organization. Yes, he is a star player under these league rules, but how many people in Memphis are buying tickets to watch Lauri Markkanen play when he comes to town?
No, the answer is
it's none.
Yeah, very little, if at all. Right? They're buying tickets in the Mid-South to see their home team, the Grizzlies, play, who are right now tied for the second best record in the West with the Nuggets at 42-24. They want to see John Morant be electrified as far as going airborne, and Desmond Bain and all those guys, and Zach Edey, all those guys play well. So it's not really Lauri Markkanen. But again, the TV, what happened was the abuse of the rule, which was done by the Spurs. Remember with the Spurs resting all their once-in-a-lifetime players on national televised games about 7 years ago, when the Spurs were really still a viable team as far as going deep in the playoffs. They used to sit sometimes Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, Tim Duncan, all at the same time. And TV said, we're not paying X amount of billions of dollars to not have the main guys play. So that was the genesis of it, of why it started this way.
So the other question here for me is, $100,000 is not exactly punitive for an NBA owner, for an NBA organization. When you're talking about the budgets that are thrown around, I mean, that's like a quarter's worth of concessions on a bad night at the Delta Center. So how big does a fine have to be before anyone actually cares?
$1 million and more.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah, $1 million.
So 10x what you just got.
Yeah,
slapped
exactly.
with.
Yeah. So it's interesting. It's most players, they do want to play. So that's the question is Larry Markin, who's really, Sean alluded to, is that Jazz fans like him. He's good. He's a knockdown shooter. He creates so many mismatch problems, but he does have back issues. And when you're 7 foot, who's to say that when you get out of bed in the morning, that I really can't perform tonight? And so that's what the Jazz are saying, that he couldn't perform. The NBA strongly disagreed with that. So as we go forward, we'll investigate more and give you more of a definitive reason why they were fined. Now, last night's game, you mentioned about Memphis, is that it was a hard-fought game. It was actually really an entertaining game. It was a winnable contest. It wasn't lack of effort by the Jazz. They fought hard, and they pounded the boards where they out-rebounded the Grizzlies by 21, 60-39. In the offensive glass, it was 17-6. The problem was, as always, the Jazz lead the NBA in most turnovers committed at 16.6 per game. They got 23 last night in a 2-possession game. So you have no chance of winning if you give the team, meaning the rivals, 23 times you let them, you couldn't score yourself and give an opportunity to score. So that's been the biggest problem for the Jazz the whole season is the turnovers. So they've got to correct that as they go forward.
I mean, even in a bad turnover game, the Jazz out-rebounded Memphis by 21. So you're giving yourself these extra possessions. You're battling on the boards. That should translate to a win 9 times out of 10. But then when you're turning it over that often, again, I'm not complaining about it because this is what the team needs to do. But from inside that locker room, there's got to be a certain amount of frustration when you play well, especially in one aspect, and then you kind of, the self-inflicted wound erases that advantage you've given yourself.
Yes. And also that self-inflicted wound you've given to yourself, that spilled over with the frustration of, say, Colin Sexton, who really battled hard last night. So last night's game, Collier had 7 turnovers, Clarkson 5, and Sexton 4. But Colin Sexton, which I really did enjoy, is that he got after John Moran, end of that game. And so that's what you want to do, as always. But I always talk about it. Don't wait until the season's almost over. Get after these guys, the competition. When someone disrespects you during the game, go after them right at that moment. And if we have to sometimes fight or have scuffles because of mano a mano, I'm all for it within reason.
Sure.
That's the catchword, within reason. And that shows you that you do care. Colin Sexton, that guy does care. And he's a good player. He can score 25 points in a windstorm. Like right now, Sean, we're outside right now playing on the street across right here in the empty parking lot, and we had an outdoor hoop. He could score 25 in the wind.
I mean, not if I'm D'ing him up, Gordy. Come on.
Oh, I like that. Okay. No, I like your enthusiasm. I think that he'd be able to probably get some separation with that shoulder leverage.
I think he'd probably be okay. I want, before we take a break, I want to ask you about this because you brought up the point about within reason. That kind of like that heat, you need it in games, but it's got to stay within reason. It feels like in the NBA, 99 times out of 100, the guys keep it within reason. Yes, you get these little scuffles and kerfuffles and push it, and there's certainly a lot of jawing back and forth. But I don't remember the last time I tuned in and saw the highlight, or in this case, the low light, of an NBA fight that really got out of hand? I mean, it's been years to my recollection.
Yeah, very much. And the reason why TV partners, TV doesn't like to see fights as far as in basketball games.
Yeah.
In your profession, your former profession, fighting is perfectly normal
Yeah.
and it's exciting, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, it's fine in hockey.
Yeah, it's right. It's part of the culture. It's almost culturally.
Sure.
But in basketball, in yesteryear, absolutely. And in jazz basketball, we used to get in so many fights because of how we played physicality. In jazz basketball in yesteryear, we used to be physical offensively. See, most teams, good teams, are physical defensively. We used to be offensively, how we screened, how we cut, how we sliced to the basket, how we always were put our body on the opposing team's body before they try to hurt us. As Carl Malone used to say to me, Gordy, before they hurt me, I'm hurting them.
Well, and he obviously got himself into some trouble doing so, but you could cut on any YouTube video of Karl Malone, and his elbows are out, and he's moving people out of the way with them. Did the NBA come down and say, hey, guys, let's not have that anymore? Like this elbows out thing, ball on your chest, elbows first. We want a little bit less of that because, again, it feels like something that we used to get a lot of in the 90s, into the early 2000s, and the game has changed in many, many ways, and that, to me, is one of them.
Yeah, very much. So add to that was that with Carl-type players, Dennis Rodman-type players, Charles Oakley-type players, is that they would find those guys X amount of money, and that we used to get memos from the league about what's perceived as far as physical play versus dirty play. And as Sean, as always, it's that fine line. How do you? I call this who's the interpreter in chief of how you interpret certain things about a player. Really, I loved it. Matter of fact, personally, I loved it because usually speaking, the worst you can do ever in a NFL or an NBA playoff game when you're above sea level, 35,000 feet at 3 o'clock in the morning, you say these awful words. I wish our team was more physical during the game after the loss versus I say be physical from the get-go. Stop being physical in layup lines. I know some guys in our team used to foul themselves in layup lines. Get used to what? Getting fouled in a game.
Really?
Oh, absolutely.
That's awesome.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, definitely.
Look, that in the combat sports world, you'll see that, like myself included, you'll see guys, you don't want the first real impact you feel to be in competition, in live action. You want to feel like for your body to have that visceral reaction in the locker room, or I guess in this case, in the layup line. That's interesting.
Oh, this is why certain teams consistently win, whether you have a high-level talent or average talent compared to who you play against. You can still win. You know, a lot of times is the team that's more physical with an element of shot making, but overall team defense, you could be in every single game.
Gordy Chiesa is here with us for the next hour in studio. We're going to take a break here. When we come back, I'm going to pick Gordy's brain about something I noticed in the Jazz game last night. There's ebbs and flows always, but what minutes are the most important minutes in an NBA basketball game? We talk about the middle eight in football all the time. Last four before the half, first four after the half. We're going to have that same conversation on the basketball front here in just a little bit. I want to remind all of our listeners out there right now that March Madness is coming up. St. Patrick's Day is coming up. You need a place to watch these basketball games. You need a place to celebrate St. Patty's Day. I've got one stop for you that has you covered on both fronts. Our friends at Big Willie's are running food specials, drink specials. They're going to have every game on the multiple televisions down at Big Willie's. And, of course, corned beef, cabbage, corned beef burger. They've got you covered, like I said, on all fronts for both St. Patty's Day and for March Madness. When you head down there to Big Willie's, tell them that OC sent you. 1717 South Main Street in Salt Lake City. Say, hey, OC told me to come in here. He said, he got my name on the list. He said I should try the corned beef burger, and that even if I don't like corned beef, the craft food menu is excellent. They'll throw you an appetizer. They'll put the drinks down. They'll turn the TV to the game that you want to watch, and you're going to enjoy your St. Patty's Day celebration, your March Madness. Be a degenerate for a day. Just give yourself a break and go watch like 16 basketball games at Big Willie's, 1717 South Main Street. Gordy Chiesa hanging out with us. I'm Sean O'Connell. Don't go anywhere. It's ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. If you've ever noticed that we have certain music when Gordy Chiesa comes in, this is DJ Gordy Chiesa. This is the Gordy Chiesa playlist.
Hey, I love Maroon 5.
I,
Adam Levine, I love him.
I think they're great. So, this is the kind of song, if you're listening to this and you're not moving a little bit, you're not my kind of guy. All right? You don't have to sing along, but you turn this on, you turn it up a little bit, a little toe tapping, a little head nodding at least.
I'm way beyond just basketball.
Gordy Chiesa in studio with us. I'm Sean O'Connell. All right. Gordy, we saw this in the Utah Jazz game last night. In every basketball game, there's streaks, there's ebbs, there's flows, there's scoring droughts. College basketball, it gets wild, the momentum swings. A little bit less of that typically in the NBA. But, for example, the Jazz came out after the half with a very, very strong third quarter. And then Memphis closed out the game much more successfully than the Jazz did, scoring a bunch of unanswered points, putting themselves ahead, staying ahead, etc. So the minutes that matter the most when you're teaching situational basketball, when you're spending time in practice, football coaches, it's end of half, it's start of second half, it's goal line situations and all that stuff. What minutes matter most in an NBA basketball game?
The last 2 minutes of the third quarter, where usually speaking, some of your starters are not in the game. So your backup people, if there's 3 out of the 5, they've got to be able to get momentum as far as get stops and score the ball. The start of the fourth quarter, where there's still reserves in the game, and you might switch 1 or 2 of the starters to rest them. And what happens is that as the time goes on, players perform better if they know when they're going to be in the game versus they're not sure if they're going in at that moment. And so the first 2 minutes, so it's the last 2 of the third quarter and the first 2 of the fourth quarter, and then the last 4 minutes of the game. That's when I was in Jazz basketball, we were maniacal about, Sean, doing this. Can we get 3 stops in a row at the under 4-minute mark, and can we score 3 straight consecutive possessions? And that creates so much momentum, both offense and defense, defense and offense. And usually speaking, now you're playing under the influence of both sides of the ball. And so we'd practice that. So in the breakdown drills, if we had 2 stops in a row, and we at the third attempt for the third stop, the defensive stop, we didn't get, you go back to 0 starts. And it teaches the players as collectively to what? To be engaged. And we say stops, we mean a clean stop. We don't mean just foul somebody. And offensively, can you score the ball 3 consecutive times in a row? That's including both foul shots. So, for example, Sean, you score in the game the last 4 minutes. I score, that's 2. Suddenly, James goes to the foul line and goes 1 for 2. We're back to 0 again. And what that does, it makes everybody engage, and it magnifies the possession, both in offense and defense. Your bench is so important in the NBA because they're the ones that either increase the lead or hold the lead or, God forbid, lose the lead. So we practice it, time and score, situational, just like in football. The better teams usually win close games. Sure. It's not just by luck. They practice it, and they're maniacal about it, and that there's accountability. Like Sean, like in football, it's an awful feeling when you get a pre-snap penalty in the red zone. Like it's so sad where suddenly you're ready to play, and then things happen, and now it's a penalty.
BYU just hit a 3-pointer, tied it up at 72, 11 minutes-ish left between Iowa State and BYU.
And wow. And with BYU is that they've done a wonderful job, and that's Utah basketball as far as the Utes right now. They're going to try to have the exact same mentality as far as hiring a former NBA assistant coach with Utah Tides, meaning Alex Jensen, via BYU, Kevin Young, and have the same formula as far as jump-starting the program. So it should be interesting. The Cougars done a good job as far as in recruiting. They have a whole bunch of money. I'm sure Utah's going to counter that.
All right. Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I did want to ask you today. I have it in my notes today to ask you at least one Utah basketball question because you know Alex and you know the game and you know how these rosters are constructed, but also how coaching staffs are constructed. So Gordy's going to give us the answer to this question in 3 minutes after we take a break. When you're taking your first head coaching job, how important are your assistant coaches and what kind of guys are you looking for to be your assistants when you're a first-time head coach? Gordy answers that question for us next on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Gordy's got some awesome ideas for our offseason, James. We're going to have to – James is the boss. We're going to have to run some of this across the James Peterson desk. James, we got plans for across the street, all right? Right across the street from our Broadway studios. I'm Sean O'Connell. That's Gordy Chiesa. All right, Alex Jensen taking over his alma mater, University of Utah basketball program. His introductory press conference is Monday evening. We will, of course, have all the sound from that for you. But as Alex Jensen has to make some decisions about how to construct his assistant coaching staff, a role that Gordy Chiesa occupied in many different places for many different years. He is a first-time head coach at the college level. Now, when you're a first-time head coach in the NBA, when you're a first-time head coach in college, he has been a head coach in the G League, at that time the D League. You got to make sure you surround yourself with the right kind of people. But for the sake of this exercise, Gordy, what kind of guys is Alex Jensen looking for right now to be his assistants at Utah?
Your personality. So if you're an intense person, you have to have some of your assistant coaches that are superior teachers that are much more measured in their words. Or the flip side is the opposite. If you're more measured, you need a few coaches in your coaching staff that are really unfiltered as far as getting the guys to perform. That's really, I'm talking about communication. And so besides being loyal, which is an attribute, you have to be able to be a superior teacher of the game. So when you're a first-time head coach, you have to have people around you that absolutely can teach the game and fast-track it as far as acceleration. And so, hey, as a head coach, he can teach the game. I get it. I understand it. But in the breakdown drills where it's other players around you, can those coaches really accelerate a player's progress? And that's absolutely critical as far as player development. Next point, recruit globally. Can these guys you hire have the ability to go to a foreign country and create so much interest? The minimum that player they're trying to recruit will at least visit here in Salt Lake City. And the last part about that is that the assistant coaches, that they understand all the ebbs and flows of college or professional basketball, where suddenly on God forbid, a 4-game losing streak, they help you and to get through those tough moments. So a lot of it's what? A listening ear. Often, remember, it's very lonely at the top. I know a lot of friends of mine that are CFOs and CEOs of major corporations. They always tell me is that at the top of the apex is very lonely. You need somebody you could talk to, say that I think might need some help. Even though you bravado yourself as far as you always exude confidence within what? The rank and file. I get it. But behind closed doors, I need some help.
Well, it's interesting when you talk about CEOs, because when you become a head coach, and you hear this when you have private conversations more than on like radio and in public engagements, but coaches in every sport will talk about how you become just as much of an administrator as you do a coach when you're the head man, when it's your face, when it's your program, because, college basketball now is, yes, you're recruiting players. Yes, you're installing your systems. But the X's and O's and the film study and the breakdown of a game plan and an opponent and things like that, a lot of times has to be delegated because you're fundraising, you're dealing with the university president, the athletic director, things like that. So for Alex Jensen, who's a basketball junkie, as a head man, he might get a little less basketball, as counterintuitive as that is.
Yeah, so you have to delegate responsibility, especially like in the NFL and in college football. But in basketball, we're trending towards that also. Remember, Sean, I worked with Jerry Sloan for 16 years. So let's say that I saw a whole bunch of things.
Yeah.
And heard a whole bunch of things above sea level, 35,000 feet, or what? On gravity on the ground, on the practice court. And so what you learn from that is that people are intense, and you have to be. You have to, at this level, you've got to coach with an edge. But within that edge, you have to be able to be compassionate towards people that work with you, your support staff, but also the players, because the players are human, that everybody can't be like you. So you have to have assistant coaches around you that almost like are loyal, but serve as a buffer between the head coach and the players some of the time.
Sure.
Not all the time, just some of the time.
I'm watching BYU go on a hot shooting streak here. They just they're up 3 at the commercial break with, what'd you say, James, about 8 minutes left? 8 minutes left. They were down. They were down as many as 10 and then came roaring back as I'm trying to divide my attention here and keep track of what's going on in Big 12 tournament play. Talking about teams getting hot. We were talking during the break of the Heat. The Cleveland Cavaliers have had a phenomenal season, obviously. Last I checked, I think they were 8 games up on second place in the East. I don't know if that changed last night. But in any case, the Cavaliers are having a wonderful season, the best season they've had without LeBron James in decades. You mentioned, Gordy, that they're on a 15-game win streak. Not for the first time this year. Second time. They're on a 15-game win streak in this season.
Yeah, so the Cavs right now, Sean, add to this. They're 55-10, 30-4 at home, yikes, and 25-6 on the road. And so the ability to win in hostile environment, yes, they do. So they've done it twice now. Just picture it. 15 games in a row. They've done it twice in the regular season. But I want to live for 1 second in the past. In Jazz basketball, it happened also. In the 1996-97 season, the Jazz also won 15 games in a row twice during that season. That was years when the Jazz finished 64-18 that year, 38-3 at home, and 26-15 on the road. And despite having this record season, unfortunately, the Jazz lost to Michael Jordan and the Bulls in the NBA Finals 4-2. So it just shows you, because that year also, the Bulls won 69 games. So Jazz won 64, which is incredible. The Bulls won 69. That's how good the league was at that time, but more importantly, how good it is right now. The Thunder are 54-12. So they're also knocking on heaven's door as far as having a great season. How do you win 15 games in a row?
Yeah, how do you do it, and how do you do it twice in one season?
One is that the players truly believe in the system, because you know why? They are the system. And that on both sides of the ball, they take every possession seriously, where they don't give away crazy turnovers, yet they create turnovers off the dribble, and they're pass steals and shot selection. So when you win that many games in a row, you have an incredible, orderly shot selection versus just casting up reckless shots because I feel like it. And so the Cavs are first in the NBA in scoring at 122.7 points per game. They're first in three-point shooting at 39.3% accuracy. They're second in overall field percentage next to the Denver Nuggets at 49.4. And here's the last part about that. They're second in the most made threes in the NBA at 16.1, with the front leader being the Celtics. So offensively, they are absolutely a juggernaut. Let's not forget, former Jazzman Donovan Mitchell is averaging 24.2 points per game, 4.8 assists, and 4.3 rebounds. And more importantly, is a high level of maturity. At age 28, he's mature, and this is the byproduct of a major talent that now his career arc, he's meshing his unbelievable talents and his fearlessness into maturity.
What's it like coaching a guy as he transitions beyond kind of the first iteration of his NBA self? Sometimes the young, the enjoying the lifestyle. I'm generalizing here, but it happens. Guys from every school, every part of the country, every country for that matter, guys will come in, and as young players, the NBA lifestyle is wild to see, even as an observer, knowing what's available to them on the road. All these guys with absurd amounts of money right now, and you see it, not in every player, but in so many players, where they'll talk a certain way, they'll play a certain way, they carry themselves a certain way for whatever it is, 3 years, 5 years, and then I don't know if it's a confrontation to your own mortality as a basketball player. I don't know if somebody gets in your ear. Whatever happens, you see a more mature version of players. Everything looks different. What's it like to coach that second version of the player, Gordy?
It's so much fun because they're combining they're combining about their own maturity, but also as far as them the previous season, usually in the playoffs, players suddenly it kicks in the maturity level when they got punched in the face in the playoffs. So with the Cavaliers, use them as an example, is that they beat the Magic last year 4-3, and then got punched in the nose and in the gut by the Celts 4-1. So now suddenly everybody in that organization now realizes what it takes to win. In the Cavs' point of view, is that they added a new coach also, in Kenny Atkinson. And so I coached Karl Malone when he was 25 years old. So he'd be the classic example of a guy, each passing year, he got, besides more talented and just better ball skills, the maturity factor based on the playoffs, usually non-success in the top of the apex, that drives you what? To do well.
James just put this in the notes. Cavaliers on a second 15-game win streak. They tied the 1986 Celtics, who ended up being NBA champions, for a record 14 straight wins while also scoring 110 points in each game. They won last night, but only scored 109. So, Cavs and 1986 Celtics, 14 games, wins, 110 points apiece.
Very much. Add to that, Sean, the 86 Celtics, they were 40-1 at home. That's the all-time best ever. The Jazz twice were 38-3. The first year of the Delta Center in 1991-92, the Jazz were 38-3, and in the 96-97, the Jazz were 38-3. The Celtics have the record, 40-1. So, Sean, imagine being a Celtic fan, and Danny Ainge, who now runs the Utah Jazz basketball, he was a huge part of that 40-1. That's when they had Kevin McHale, Larry Bird, Robert Parrish, the late, great Dennis Johnson, and Danny Ainge. They had some crew.
That's a group right there. All right, I have to ask you this question because I saw, tournaments are happening right now. College basketball tournaments are happening right now. And Northwestern was placed in a hotel that doesn't have air conditioning. And it's like that Northwestern got the short straw, put in some janky, broke-down hotel for a Big Ten basketball tournament. And their coach was obviously understandably upset about it because everyone should be getting equal treatment and you want conditions to be right for your guys to get good sleep. I guess this time of the year, no air conditioning is usually not as big of a deal, but still, the point remains that Northwestern got put in the low-budget hotel while everyone else is sitting pretty. I don't imagine this happens often in the NBA, but you've been around the game so long, and before it was 5 stars for everybody, I'm sure. The craziest travel story, the most disadvantageous situation you found yourself in on the road?
Well, the first thing is that we left out with Northwestern. They upset Minnesota, and their head coach is Chris Collins, Doug Collins' son. And so he's around basketball his whole life, and I'm glad for them. The crazy situation would be when you're in a foreign country. So whenever a lot of times you went to Canada, when you went to Canada in the early 90s, it was always a little bit interesting. Also in preseason games where at that time you played in different cities. It wasn't actually an NBA city. You played a neutral site, and sometimes it was really the hotels weren't up to standard. However, led by Jerry Sloan, is irrelevant. We used to talk about it all the time. Who cares what the hotel looks like? It's irrelevant. I don't care if we took the school bus, the yellow school bus. We don't care. We're just going to play. It doesn't matter one bit. Add to that, Sean, was that sometimes you play your best games when you have travel concerns. In other words, where the plane's not working, so suddenly it does take off. Thank God the mechanical problem was fixed. And you get to the new city at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, or you go directly to the arena, and you know what happens? You play great. Because why? You just play. And that's what the better teams do. They overcome any sort of airplane situations, their travel logs, etc. Just play. Who cares before what happened? Once you lace them up, you go into the court, You've got to be able to perform, and the better teams do it. And that, so Sean, let's take the yellow school bus.
Gordy, we talked about this on the show yesterday. This week is the 5-year anniversary of COVID shutting down the NBA. We're watching tournament basketball right now. The Pac-12 tournament shut itself down after the Jazz and Oklahoma City, all this thing. It just, the cascading events, just tournament canceled after tournament canceled after tournament canceled. And your memories of that time?
Well, at that time, I was actually doing the broadcast of the game. Jazz basketball, they're playing the Thunder. We're in the studio doing the game, and I knew something was up when all the these guys in suits suddenly were talking to the officials. And remember back in 2020, the pandemic, we've heard about it, but it really didn't go mainstream until they canceled that game, and that created the most unbelievable situation where my memory was that the game was canceled, and we knew why. And Rudy Gobert contracted the coronavirus, and that created basically, that was the tipping point of sports and big business and going to work. It created a whole different now dynamics, and that's my memory bank of that. I was actually on the air doing the game.
Wild. Okay, before we let you go, the list today.
The list today, I've been thinking about, Sean, lefties.
Uh-huh.
All right, so this list today is the NBA, ABA left-handed regular season career point leaders.
You know, I'm left-handed.
I knew that,
but I'm right-armed.
Yes. No, I knew you're left-handed.
Okay.
I knew you were, and so is President. So it's also former President Barack Obama. Southpaw scorers, yes, lefties live in a right-handed world. All right. If you are lefty, please raise your left hand in overdue acknowledgement of your abilities.
You know, my dad had this funny thing he taught me, even though he's not left-handed, because when you're playing baseball, especially as a little kid, everyone makes a big deal about you being left-handed.
Southpaw.
When you're doing sports as a kid, everyone makes a big deal out of you being left-handed. And my dad, who's not a lefty, he taught me the phrase, which would usually get a laugh out of people. And they, in hindsight, all the adults probably thought I was a little turd. But I would say, everybody's born right-handed. Only the best people overcome it.
Oh, I like that. Okay. And no, your dad was right. And let's add to this. So these 11 players, the all-time lefty career scorers. Number 11 was surprising. Mike Conley played for the Jazz for 213 games. Mike's 11th all-time in career scoring, 16,361 as a lefty. Number 10, Nate Archibald, nickname was the Skate, Hall of Famer, 16,481 tallies. Number 9, Hall of Famer, Chris Bosh. He scored 17,189. Number 8, tremendous player, Lenny Wilkins, Hall of Famer. He scored 17,772 points as a southpaw. Number 6, Hall of Famer. This guy is the purest lefty range shooter of all time. He's in the Hall of Fame. Chris Mullin, 17,911. Number 6, his nickname was Zebo. Zach Randolph of the Grizzlies accumulated 18,578. Number 5, he's a former New Orleans Jazz player. Gail Goodrich, Hall of Famer. He scored 19,181. Number 4, in the Hall of Fame also. He wore size 22 Converse sneakers. Yes, Bob Lanier, 19,248. Number 3, nickname the Admiral, Hall of Famer, David Robinson. He scored 20,790. Number 2, his nickname was the A-Train. He's also in the Hall of Fame, Artis Gilmore, 24,941. And number 1, top of the list, he's a future Hall of Famer. He's the number 1 southpaw scorer in the history of NBA basketball. James Harden has accumulated 27,291 career points.
Wow.
And trending. Quickly, in Jazz basketball, Joe Ingles, that lefty with a swag, is the best ever lefty scorer, range shooter, and playmaker in Jazz history. Thus, yes, Sean, lefties have more fun.
I'm glad you brought attention to left-handed people here for just a minute, because something that you righties probably never had to deal with when you're a kid, all right, and you're using pencils on your papers, your hand drags across what you've already written down. So if you're using markers with an exceptionally wet ink, you're using a pen with an exceptionally wet ink, or when you're using pencils, you're writing on your little school assignments, right? And then your hand drags across what you just wrote. Two reasons that's a problem. Your hand gets covered, the heel of your hand or whatever gets covered in the substance, the lead, the ink, and then your work gets a little bit smudged by your own hand. Okay? It's something you got to deal with as a lefty that righties just they can't relate to, Gordy.
Agreed. How about greatest ever lefty quarterbacks?
Steve Young.
Steve Young, yeah.
Love him. Our favorite guy locally, at least. The other thing for lefties, you sit down, there's a righty next to you when you're eating, like at a restaurant or something. The chairs are a little bit too close together. Becomes an elbow fight while you're eating. You're trying to just get the mashed potatoes into your mouth, and some overbearing right-handed person thinks that you're the problem because they also are just trying to get the mashed potatoes into their mouth, and you're going elbow to elbow, Gordy.
Lefties living in a right-handed world.
It's true.
I'm glad that I could raise your velocity level of your voice as I spoke about lefties. And so James Harden, number 1, and number 11, former Jazz man Mike Conley. Yes, lefties are in vogue.
Gordy, you're the man. Always appreciate you giving us some time. The hour flies by every time you come in. It just goes so fast.
Thanks, Sean. Peace out.
That's Gordy Chiesa, our resident NBA expert. We'll take a quick one here. We'll come back with the head coach of Utah women's basketball, Gavin Peterson, next on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Welcome back to the Sean O'Connell Show. Part of our Big 12 coverage in the noon hour is a conversation coming with Gavin Peterson, brought to you by Mountain Land Supply. Visit mountainlandsupply.com. Go to any of their physical locations for any home project remodel need. Gavin Peterson, head coach of Utah women's basketball. How are you, sir?
Good. How are you doing, OC?
Doing all right. Just hanging out, watching some Big 12 men's tournament going on the television in front of me right now, and that
one's going down to the wire.
Yeah, 89-86 right now. BYU up. I'll make it at 89-87. A minute 15 left to play with Iowa State set to shoot another free throw here. This one's been a little bit back and forth. And Coach, I know that the Big 12 women's tournament didn't necessarily go the way that you wanted it to, but your team gets a little bit of extra rest. You're still going to have your name called on Selection Sunday, which we'll talk about the Selection Sunday plans here in just a second. So now that you've had a few days to process it, give us your thoughts on the Big 12 women's basketball tournament.
Yeah, the tournament was, first class in every way. The venue, T-Mobile Center, is amazing. The men are obviously playing there right now. The Big 12 Gucci Court, as they call it, was pretty cool to be up there in close in person. But what a way to brand the Big 12, and kind of cool thing there. And in terms of our performance, I thought we were prepared, ready to roll. Felt really good about our matchup and even our seeding and kind of what that would lead to. At the end of the day, I think internally, our program put too much pressure on ourselves, and you can really see after watching the game back, there were a lot of moments when we were playing not to lose and not playing as freely and fearless as we normally have been throughout the season. So, that falls on my shoulders, and I told the team that, we've got to kind of find that joy and excitement that comes with this time of the season. And so I'm going to be better as we get ready for the NCAA tournament, and I want them to be able to feed off of my energy. And we're going to be playing to win, and we're going to be fearless, and we're going to be playing Utah basketball, whoever we get put in front of us come the NCAA tournament time.
With a little bit of an extended break, Coach, in every sport it seems, you get into this debate about rust versus rest, and you want to make sure that you're allowing bodies to heal and the bumps and the bruises to go away, because everyone's got them at this point in a basketball season, but that you're staying fresh and that you're in a rhythm and things like that. So what decisions have you made to try to strike that balance?
Yeah, so immediately following the Big 12 tournament and after our game against Texas Tech, we traveled back the next day. We gave them the weekend off to just hit the reset button. We reconvened Monday, had a team meeting, and kind of laid out the plan for the rest of the week. Got after it on Tuesday and Wednesday. We took today off. We'll prepare tomorrow as if we have a game on Saturday, and then we're going to scrimmage our practice squad on Saturday to kind of give us some type of game simulation. So we're kind of still, like you said, staying in a rhythm, kind of playing together, executing our offense and defensive game plans. And then we'll take Sunday off with Selection Sunday, and that will kind of, ease everybody's, anxiety and just kind of excitement about who are we playing, where are we going. And then from there, it's all hands on deck, and, we got to burn the midnight oil, get the coffee pots ready, and we're going to just get as prepared as we possibly can in a short period of time.
So I'm watching a lot of this postseason basketball right now, and men, women, doesn't matter. We know what the game has become. The shooters, you got to be hot shooting. You got to make 3-pointers, especially this time of year. And you could make an argument that tournament play has always been about the guards, but it's not just the guards shooting threes anymore. So how much of practice and shoot around, how much of it is just trying to make sure that your gals are dialed in on their shots right now?
Yeah, I think that is a huge component. I think knowing where your shots are going to come from and the shots that are the best shots for our team at that moment, you got to be ready to knock them down. And I go back to the game against Texas Tech. I mean, we gave up 10 3-pointers. So exactly what you said came true, and Texas Tech got hot at the right time, and they were able to beat us. I think we made 8 3-pointers. So it's one of those things where you want to be peaking at the right time in terms of your confidence and your shot making ability, and that's something we do on a daily basis. It doesn't matter if we're in September or March here. We are preparing and training the same way. We shoot a lot, and it's just about getting into that rhythm, finding that cohesive togetherness on the floor, sharing the ball, and then letting it fly. And that's where I want our team to get back to, is just that fearlessness of, if I get left open, I'm letting it fly.
All right, just watched a just horrible Iowa State turnover on a very, very crucial possession down the stretch in this game. And we were talking Utah Jazz basketball with Gordy Chiesa for the last hour or so, and they had a terrible turnover game last night against Memphis. Mitigating turnovers, because you don't want folks to play tight, and you want the ball to move right, and you want everyone to feel like they can dribble out of things when they need to. But what's the right way to try to mitigate turnovers from a coaching standpoint?
You know, if I had that answer, we'd probably have a lot less L's in that L column. I think it's part of the game where, especially for us, when we want to play fast, we want to play up-tempo, we want to get up and down. Well, there are going to be some turnovers that come with that style of play. The turnovers that we cannot afford to have are the ones where are self-inflicted, where we're not as fundamentally sound as we need to be, and we shuffle our feet and get called for traveling. Or if it's driving into traffic, picking up a charge call. Like, those are some of the controllable turnovers. And then, end of the game situations. We work on those enough where we shouldn't have those turnovers rear their ugly heads, because you should be dialed in, knowing how to execute with X amount of time on the clock and kind of a must-have possession. So, turnovers are a part of it. You just got to make sure you stop the bleeding, especially when you play teams that want to pressure full court, like West Virginia in our league, like Texas Tech did early on in the game against us. You just kind of got to, ride that wave of, intensity and full court pressure, and then settle in as best you possibly can.
Gavin Peterson, Utah women's basketball head coach, is our guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show for a couple more minutes. Tournament time, obviously you want to get your best players on the court as much as possible. You want to make sure that you're getting them into a nice rhythm and getting points and production out of the gals who you've leaned into and leaned on this year. Now, everyone has played their roles at important times. I mean, we've played the Maddie Wilkie buzzer beater, half court buzzer beater on the as a highlight. We've played that thing like 15 times on the show, because Tyson Ewing had a great call, but also it was an awesome shot, and then her reaction to it and the team's reaction to it, all of it was great, right?
Yes.
And it's not always going to be her taking a shot like that. And then you see in tournament play what can happen if somebody as important as Kennedy McQueen doesn't get going in a game. So I keep asking you these questions that are probably much easier to ask than they are to answer, but to make sure that you can get Kennedy going, and you can get Gianna going, and you can get Jenna going. What does that take in a game, and how much do you have to kind of react to what they're doing, what they're playing like, versus your own decision making?
Yeah, I think part of it has to go with maybe our preparation. That's something my staff and I have been talking about. I've actually talked with our leadership group on our team, and they kind of echo the thoughts that sometimes it is easier when their number is called earlier on. And so I think from a strategic standpoint, I think you can look for in our next game maybe a few more quick hitters to really get those people that you talked about a quick touch, a quick look at the basket, and then that kind of opens things up. Gianna Neekins doesn't really need her number called to get a shot off. She's very good at creating her own shot. I think Maya Torre is the same way as well. She runs the floor, she posts up, she gets the ball. But the other players, because of how the game is played, and they might not have as much control of when they get the ball at the right spots at the right time. So I think that's the strategic part that I think our program will really try to get going come that first game in the NCAA tournament, is try to get Kennedy going, Jenna some touches, and then everyone else. I think it opens things up. And then at that point, we get stops. We can just run our continuity transition offense and then go from there.
96-92, the final. BYU over Iowa State in a Big 12 tournament quarterfinal. So BYU will advance. Richie Saunders, player of the game. Big win for them. As we wrap up our conversation with Gavin Peterson, the Selection Sunday viewing party. This is happening at the football stadium, the Ken Garff Red Zone at Rice Eccles Stadium. Coach, what are we doing? This catered? Is this a potluck? You want me to bring like some artichoke dip? How we playing this thing?
Just bring positive energy, positive vibes, and we're going to celebrate our season and kind of get that momentum back. We finished the year 7-3 in our last 10 games, so a lot more wins than losses. So we just got to get back to feeling good, feeling excited. This is going to be our 4th NCAA tournament in a row, which is huge for our program, and we want to continue to build in on that legacy and keep things going. It's also going to be a special evening for us to really highlight our seniors once again because they have been so integral in our turnaround of our program and putting Utah women's basketball on the map as a perennial NCAA tournament team. And I want to remind people, we are one of 13 programs over the last 3 years that have won their first-round game. So we're looking to build on that and win our first-round game once again. Once we find out who that is, we're going to attack that like nothing else. And it's, one and done at that point, and winner stays. So we're going to be really excited about that. We're going to embrace that opportunity, but we're also going to celebrate the people that have gotten us to this point.
Coach, what I look forward to most about this Selection Sunday party and just the process. You're going to be gathered, your gals are going to be gathered there, and you're going to find out where you sit, who you play. And this is what's so special about sports for me, because you've earned this opportunity, right? You had to play well enough throughout the season to get this gift. But the gift, the reward, is the biggest challenge of the year. And everyone's still going to be thrilled about it. That's why sports are so special, because it's just like all that work you put in, all the difficulty, the adversity that you all overcame individually, as a team, whatever. Your reward for doing all of that is to now be given an opportunity to do something even harder, and it is celebrated instead of feared. Coach, it's wonderful.
Absolutely. It is. I love it. We always tell our team at this time, there's going to be one team at the end of the season that cuts down net. Everyone else is going to end their season on a loss. So you can't think about it that way, or else it just kind of can get depressing. So it's a matter of, you guys have earned the right to play on the biggest stage there is in women's basketball. Embrace it, have fun with it, and you're going to be making memories that are going to last you a lifetime. So grab a hold of it and just enjoy every second that you can.
Okay, last thing before I let you go. Alex Jensen, former Utah basketball great, has been hired on the men's side to take over the program. He's taking care of Dallas Mavericks duties right now, so I to my knowledge, he hasn't actually been on campus and in the practice facility and things like that. My guess is you haven't had an opportunity to speak with him yet. Am I correct?
Yeah, I have not.
Okay. When you are afforded that opportunity, because of course you're at least going to run into each other, what's the Gavin Peterson message going to be to Alex Jensen, aside from congratulations and welcome, about being a head coach of Utah basketball?
Well, I think, me, when I grew up, my dad officiated college basketball. So I have been around basketball in the game for so long. But I remember watching him play. Like I love basketball. I'm a trivia nut. I love the history of the game, both on the men and women's side. So I remember him playing. I've heard so many great things about him from a lot of different people. So my first thing, other than introducing myself to him, is obviously going to ask permission to be able to sit in on some practices and player development sessions and all those type of things, because there's a lot of different ways to do things. And with somebody with his experience and his NBA knowledge, I would love to just be able to pick his brain when things settle down. And I just love the fact that us bearded guys, we got to stick together. So maybe we can get a sponsorship or something here for Utah basketball, both on the men and women's side.
I need both of you guys to throw a little bit more salt in the salt and pepper beards. Okay, I've got the grayest beard I need you guys to age a little faster, I think.
That's funny because my best friend tells me all the time, man, you got to put some color in that. I'm like, no, man, these whites are earned.
All right, Coach, have some good practices, and we'll see you on Sunday.
Awesome. I love being on the show. Thanks, OC, and go Utes.
Gavin Peterson, Utah women's basketball head coach, Selection Sunday party at the Ken Garff Red Zone at the University of Utah's football stadium, of course, at Rice-Eccles. That is coming up Sunday, 5 o'clock. Celebrate St. Patrick's Day Saturday, March 15th at Gracie's with live music, giveaways, games, photo booths, and more right in the heart of Salt Lake City. Details and to RSVP, go to gracieslc.com. They're doing the party on Saturday, March 15th at Gracie's. Don't wait till actual St. Patrick's Day. Wander in there and be like, hey, where's the photo booths? Where's the games? Where's the giveaways? Saturday, people, gracieslc.com. All right, we'll take a quick one. We'll come back. James Peterson has an NBA tank race update. Then we got some Utah Hockey Club to start hour number 3. We're rolling on a Thursday. It's the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM, proud part of Utah's ESPN radio network. We're going to do this back to back. We are going to do the NBA tank race update, and then we're going to start hour number 3 of the show with a Utah Hockey Club conversation. Fold into that will be, of course, Puck Lake City playoff push. And we'll give you the updated playoff odds for the Utah Hockey Club. James Peterson is in charge of the tank race update. What do you have for us, sir?
So we're gonna go all the way back to Tuesday because we missed a day here. A lot went on over the last few days. OC, the Wizards have come back almost all the way back to the pack. There's only a game separating the Wizards and the Jazz right now in the standings. 2 games in the win column, which of course is ultimately the most important thing. But yeah, they've come back to the pack. I'll update the standings in full with you in just a second. First, what happened on Tuesday night? The Pelicans beat the Clippers. Let's go, New Orleans. All right.
Well done.
Well done. Our allies in New Orleans, because the shared franchise is a little bit there, of course. Wizards lost to the Pistons, unfortunately. Pistons are a good team, though, and that was in Detroit. I know, people are confused. Pistons are good. They're not in the tank race. No, this year, they're officially not in the tank race for the first time in a long time. And so they beat the Wizards. Last night, Jazz, of course, lose to the Grizzlies, even though they it looked like they wanted to win the way that they played this game. OC, this is the 3rd straight game, by the way, for the Jazz that they were down at least 19 points. We'll call it 20 points. It was a 19-point deficit against Memphis, but it was 20-plus point deficits in the other 2 games. That they, well, maybe not the 3rd straight, 3rd out of the last 4. I forget the Wizards game, which was close throughout. That they were down that many points, but then fought back to make it a single or 2-possession game with under a minute left. Like, this team fights and then loses. It's what you want in the tank race. So, see, you want, as Scott Mitchell kept calling it, competitive losing. The Jazz are mastering competitive losing right now against good teams too. Hornets lost to the Hawks, unfortunately. T-Wolves beat the Nuggets. They have the T-Wolves, T-Wolves have the Nuggets number. I think they're 3-0 against them this season. Of course, they beat them in the playoffs last year. That could be a potential first-round playoff matchup. Could be an upset for the Nuggets, who look like they're probably going to be the 2 or 3 seed in the West. Something to watch there. We hope the T-Wolves won't be in the playoffs, of course, because then that'd be another lottery pick for the Jazz, but it's looking like they probably will be there. Tonight, Pelicans versus Magic. Wizards at Pistons again. Looks like probably 2 more losses for the guys in the tank race, although the Magic haven't been good at times this year, OC. So maybe that's a winnable game for New Orleans. And then the standings, as I mentioned, Wizards 13-51, Jazz 15-51. They're tied in the loss column. Only 2 games separate them in the win column with a fair amount of games left. Jazz can still catch the Wizards here in this race. Hornets, a game and a half behind the Jazz at 16-49. Pelicans, 18-48. Jazz starting to separate themselves from the Hornets and Pelicans.
Okay.
Where the T-Wolves tied for 6th, game and a half, and with the Warriors, they're both a game and a half ahead of the 8th place Clippers. And then it's conference tournament play. We've been talking about the BYU game all show, OC, because it's been on. So a chance to do some scouting, Jazz fans. Look at some of these projected lottery picks of those guys in action. Cooper Flagg was in action.
Yeah.
And then he left with an ankle injury.
Doesn't matter now. So the tank race no longer matters because Cooper Flagg rolled his ankle. So can't draft him. He's done.
All right.
Don't worry about it.
We'll end this segment. No. So he, unfortunately, is going to be out. He did not return to the game. I would anticipate there's a chance he misses tomorrow night's game as well.
You got to keep him out the rest of the conference tournament.
He's got to be ready for the madness, right?
Yeah,
so
they're a
we'll
1
see.
seed either way, right? So just let it be.
Yeah, so Duke, still a reason to watch Duke though. Con Kneppel, the other projected lottery pick. He's a wing shooting guard, maybe a very small forward in the NBA. Really good shooter. He's projected as a lottery pick for Duke. Baylor's guard, VJ Edgecombe, 5 o'clock on ESPN. He'll be in action. Texas's guard, Trey Johnson. He's another shooting guard. in a rivalry game versus Texas A&M in the SEC quarters. That's coming up a half hour from now on SEC Network. Illinois has a guard, Kasparis Yakuchunas. 4:30 on Big Ten Network is when he'll be in action. And then, of course, we just saw BYU's Yegor Demon, but our audience should be pretty familiar with his game at this point. But they won again, so he'll be in action again tomorrow night if you want to do some scouting on Yegor. In the event that the Jazz get a high draft pick, but it's not the number one pick, those are some other guys you can keep an eye on that could be difference makers. One note, Rutgers lost their Big Ten tournament game. They're not a March Madness team this year, so probably not another chance to see Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey. There's your tank race update.
Great stuff, as always, from James Peterson. You're 18 and a half minutes away from the next Big 12 tournament game tipping off. That'll be Colorado and Houston. Winner of that faces BYU in a semifinal. So it'll probably be Cougar on Cougar crime in that semifinal.
That'd be fun. Houston Cougars, BYU Cougars, two of the best teams in the conference.
And they're just going to get a bunch of attractive older women to fill up all the stands. So it'll be Cougar game down there.
And maybe they can convince them to at least sell some maple bars, and if not full-on Cougar tails at T-Mobile Arena or T-Mobile Center, whatever they call it in Kansas City.
Yeah, it gets confusing, especially because T-Mobile Arena in Vegas is for tournament play.
That was the Pac-12's tournament home.
Correct.
That we're very familiar with, but now T-Mobile Center in Kansas City, in another place that's known for also conference tournament play.
Also hosting tournament play relevant to the state of Utah. So you're just T-Mobile, you're confusing us, all right? There's got to be some bakery that can just extend their regular maple bar donuts for the BYU fans, right?
Absolutely. You don't have to tell them, "Hey, can we make them 3 feet long like a cougar tail?" You let's just get some maple bars in here.
You
can call them mini cougar tails, baby cougar tails.
Oh wow, I don't like that imagery. You wouldn't want to eat the tail of a baby cougar. That's brutal. I don't mind lopping off the tail of an adult cat. All right, but a baby, a kitten.
Of course you don't mind that as an animal lover like you are. Of course you don't mind the taking off the tail of an adult cougar.
We're really derailed here. I would love to know what Brett Yormark is saying on television right now. He's a fascinating guy, you know? Anyway, Houston, Colorado, tipping off in about now 16-ish minutes. Winner of that game faces the BYU, who prevailed over Iowa State.
Another fun game between those two teams.
Yeah, really good one. And BYU basketball remains red hot, man. They're on a win streak. This is their third win in a row against. Because Utah wasn't a highly ranked team, obviously. But it's
if you take the Utah game away,
three out of their last 4 games have been against ranked teams.
Yeah, with Arizona, then Iowa State, and then Iowa State again.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
On fire.
You don't love to see it, if we're being honest. You know what else is really telling of the BYU basketball situation? And I know we need to take a break, so we could talk some Utah Hockey Club here at the start of hour number 3. But if you're watching that game on ESPN or whatever, you're seeing the shots of Kevin Young on the bench, as is always the case, right? All the BYU assistants, they're wearing matching garb, always the case. And who is right behind him? Who is just looming over his right shoulder? The camera catches just directly behind over his right shoulder.
I wasn't watching this closely. I'm waiting with anticipation.
Smith.
Ryan Smith.
It's Ryan Smith.
Wow. Of course he is.
It is the angel investor of BYU basketball sitting there front row right behind the bench. I mean,
the Jazz were on the road, so he had an excuse to be away from out of town in Kansas City. Yeah.
His seat was better than Tom Holmoe's seat. Man. Tom Holmoe was sitting like further away from Kevin Young than Ryan Smith is.
They're like, Tom, you're retiring. Relax.
Tom,
we're actually considering Ryan as your. Oh, wait a minute.
Tom, we're not even giving you a ticket. You're leaving us. Anyway, it was a perfect. I mean, if you could have screenshotted a couple of those moments, Kevin Young,
I'm sure they're all over Twitter. Someone did.
Sweating out like a really tight game against a very good Iowa State team. And then Ryan Smith with his backwards hat just sitting right behind him. Just there, watching over the program, metaphorically and literally. All right, got to take a break. Utah Hockey Club was in action last night against Anaheim. Basically every game for the remainder of this regular season is a must-win game for the Utah Hockey Club. That equates to a lot of pressure, but this team, they thrive in the pressure. Brogan Houston, Hockey Club Insider, joins us next to talk about the win over the Ducks. A Puck Lake City playoff push update is coming your way as well. You're listening to the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM.
Petrano chases the puck down, slides it across, and then the stuff attempt. Sergachev got a piece of that one from Strome.
Strome below the goal line, comes back out. Oh!
If you haven't had an opportunity to see the kick save from Mikhail Sergachev, yes, Sergachev, defenseman, not your goaltender. You got to find that highlight on Twitter. Utah Hockey Club prevails 3-2 over the Anaheim Ducks last night at the Delta Center. That sound courtesy of TNT Sports. Kenny Albert, Eddie Olczyk, Brian Boucher on the call. We welcome Brogan Houston, Utah Hockey Club insider from the Des News, to the Sean O'Connell Show. Talk about this game and the Puck Lake City playoff push. Brogan, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing well today. How are you?
Doing awesome. You heard the highlight. You saw the highlight. More importantly, Mikhail Sergachev. Vemelka gets out of position. He is lost. That thing is 100% going in, if not for 98 stepping in and no mask, no pads, pretending he's a goalie for a second, kicks the puck away. Unreal play.
Absolutely. I mean, we all played road hockey growing up, all of us hockey guys, and he channeled his inner road hockey player there. You know, everybody takes a turn playing goalie every now and then, and that instinct just kicked in for Sergachev there. I'll add as well that it was a 3-2 game. So had that puck gone in, we would have gone to overtime there. Like that was a game-saving save. It wasn't just a nice play. It was important to the structure of the entire game. What a play by one of the most valuable players in the league.
He's obviously been huge for this Utah Hockey Club, and I said it a couple of times already on the show today. Every game is must win at this point if this team wants to find their way in that wild card spot. Anaheim, footsteps behind you. You're chasing Calgary, St. Louis, and Vancouver, and the points are always hard to come by in the NHL. What do you think of the way that this team is kind of rising to the occasion in these contests? Overtime loss the other night, good for a point. Now this one, you get a couple more. It's clear that they understand the assignment at this moment.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. I said this in my article last night of the game cover last night, that this team has grown so much, even in the last couple months here, in terms of figuring out how to push it over the finish line. They had so many games earlier in the year where they would be up by a goal, up by 2 goals, sometimes even 3, and then they just kind of start letting the plays come to them, and they would sit there and they just kind of try and kill the clock in the third period. But no matter how good you are at defending, if your opponent is attacking you 100% for 20 straight minutes, you're going to let something back. Like, that's just how it goes. And now they have kind of figured out that you don't let the play come to them when you're defending the lead. You play in the other zone. Paul Coffey said it the best. If we have the puck, they can't score. And so that's what they've kind of figured out, and that's why they're actually in these games now rather than letting the play come to them and blowing these leads and, losing 3 of 5 games on the road, that kind of thing. They've really started to figure it out, and it's a tight race. The NHL scheduling crew did a great job at making sure that all these teams that are right around that playoff spot are playing each other over these next couple weeks here, the final stretch of the season. So the best of those 4 or 5 teams will be the one that gets that wild card spot, because they're all playing each other, and you'll see which one is the best of those 5. So it's going to be an awesome race, must-watch hockey all across the board almost every night.
Barrett Hayton got the start last night, and it was crazy because, a couple of weeks ago I started to see, reading the trade deadline articles, the proposed trades not by anyone in the Utah Hockey Club world, but by writers and stuff. A lot of those proposed trades had Hayton packaged potentially to go somewhere else, but especially in these last, 10, 11 games, he's been so crucial for the Utah Hockey Club. He's, I think, playing his best hockey of the year. What do you make of Hates right now?
Yeah, no, I think no disrespect to anybody that wrote any of those articles, but I don't think any of them have followed Utah as closely as they need to make a comment like that on Barrett Hayton. He has been supremely important to this team, probably in the top 3 to 5 most important players to this team. And if they're going to make the playoffs, Barrett Hayton's going to be a big piece of that, both in the push for the playoffs and once they actually get there, if that happens. So I don't think Armstrong was ever actually thinking of trading him. Some of these writers maybe try and get a couple extra clicks, as you sometimes do, by throwing Hayton's name out there. But no, he's been super important, especially on the power play. He's got quite a few power play goals in the last few games here, which is an area of Utah's game that has vastly improved over the last little bit here. And he also plays a defensive game too. And he doesn't get as much credit for the defensive game, but he should. Anybody can score a goal, but if you let it back in your next shift, then what's the purpose of scoring that goal? Like, it does you no good if you're even, right? And he not only scores at the one end, but then he keeps it out of his own net at the other end, and that's exactly what you need.
Talking a little Utah Hockey Club right now on the Sean O'Connell Show. Brogan Houston, Utah Hockey Club insider over at the Des News, is my guest. I don't think we've had a conversation about the Vejmelka extension yet. Is that the right move and the right money in your opinion?
Yeah, actually, I'll pump my own tires for a second. That's exactly what I called that it was going to be. I saw the Kevin Lankinen deal in Vancouver, and Lankinen has kind of a similar career arc as Vejmelka. He's been playing, that same kind of role. He wasn't expected to be the starter this year, but then he came in when an injury happened and kind of took over that starting role. And now he's earned a similar contract to what Vejmelka got, within $250,000. And so, yeah, I don't think that that's a big shocker to anybody that's following the team. And I do think that he has such potential to outplay that contract. Like 3 or 4 years from now, we could be looking at that saying, wow, what a steal. Like, this guy's perhaps maybe even a top 10 goalie in the league, and he's making, half of what the other goalies are making. So I think it's a great deal for the team, and it's life-changing money for the player too. So he was all smiles after he signs that, and it's a win-win for everybody.
Connor Ingram, for people who are not aware, has stepped away temporarily from the Utah Hockey Club. Is this a mental health break? I mean, he talked in the statement about focusing on his health, and he's referring to his mental health there, right?
I actually don't know specifically. What I do know is that he previously had entered the player assistance program. This is a few years ago for OCD issues, and I don't know if it's pertaining to that, or I know that his mother recently passed away. It could also have something to do with that. But he released a statement. He said for his health generally. He didn't say mental health specifically. But I think that it's something touching all of those subjects. But I haven't spoken to Connor since he went out, so I can't speak for him specifically on that.
Well, pretty cool moment at the Delta Center. They had like a little station set up to kind of like offer him get well soon cards, and that's it's kind of a neat thing to see the way that the community is embracing this team, the unique ways that the community is embracing this team, and obviously the players have done a good job of hugging the community right back. So I wanted to get your thoughts on that sort of impromptu gesture for a guy who, look, he hasn't had the season that he probably expected to have, and it seems like health, whether it's physical, mental, whatever, is a part of that for Connor Ingram. But for the fans to react that way and for the team to react that way, I hope is something that is not being ignored on the Ingram side of things.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that's an awesome gesture by the fans to show love for a guy that probably needs to know that he's loved right now. I know that Ingram doesn't necessarily love attention, but I'm sure anybody would appreciate that kind of a gesture from a fan base that he came into this year with such high expectations to win over this fan base and to be the starting goalie of a new franchise and this kind of thing. And as you said, some dominoes fell in the wrong ways for him, some really unfortunate stuff, and it hasn't turned out to be that way. And so, I applaud these fans that have kind of taken the reins and shown like, hey, we still care about you, man. Like, everybody needs that every now and then, and I hope that he sees that as that and that he appreciates it.
So we're trying to thread the needle here on this show of being optimistic about a potential wild card spot and also be realistic, because the numbers are what they are. You got about a 25% chance of making the playoffs right now for the Utah Hockey Club. You have some tough matchups ahead of you before the end of this regular season, and you don't control your own destiny. So, like, yes, you've got to play great hockey, but even if you do, if somebody else in front of you, if Calgary or Vancouver or St. Louis gets particularly hot, it might all be for naught. So as we're trying to thread the needle here, how are you managing this? It's better for all of us, Brogan, you included. If this team's a playoff team, it's a better story. It's a better everything if this team's a playoff team. Are you giving yourself like 25% optimism, or because of the way they're playing, because of the talent they've got, because of the fact that they're finally healthy for the most part, knock on wood, should we regard it as actually maybe a little bit better than what the numbers say right now?
Yeah, you know what? I'm about 50% optimistic right now, and I'll tell you why. I grew up a massive Vancouver Canucks fan. Like, that was my team, all the way up until day one of starting this job. And so, I like to see both teams succeed. If Vancouver or Utah makes it, I'm, happy either way. Obviously, I don't cheer for either team anymore, and I do it all professionally. But, as far as Utah goes, I think 25% is probably about the right odds. All four of those teams, Utah, Vancouver, St. Louis, and Calgary, they're all within 2 points of each other. There's only one spot available. Only one of those teams is going to get it. But as far as which of those teams is the one that gets it, it'll just depend on who gets hot, like you said. But like I mentioned before, all of these teams play each other in the next couple of weeks here. And so these standings can change. They're all 4-point games essentially, because you win. Not only do you get 2 points, but you also prevent the other team from getting 2 points, right? And so they call it a 4-point win. So there's a lot of 4-point games out there, and a lot can change as these teams play each other. So we'll see how it all shakes out. But yeah, I think about 25% is pretty good. Now, if the Delta Center is as awake as it was last night, I think Utah's probably even got a better shot. I think the guys were really feeding off the energy of the crowd last night.
Well, to the point you just made, it's Seattle tomorrow, and then it's a game against Vancouver in Vancouver on Sunday. So that's one of those 4-point games, and they'll cap off a 3-game road trip at Edmonton. Given the playoff push and the race that you're in right now, how many points does this team need to come back with from this 3-game road trip?
The right answer is 6. But I think they'd be happy with 4. But every point is so valuable at this point in the season that if they can walk away with 6 points, then they might have more than a 25% chance of making the playoffs here.
I do this thing in sports where it's like, okay, if this guy plays well, whatever the sport is, as he goes, so goes the team. There's plenty of hockey left to play, but also not plenty of hockey left to play. Yeah. And so I wouldn't expect someone to get hot against Seattle and stay hot all the way through the end of April. But who is going to be the person or the persons that determine whether or not this team a week from now, 2 weeks from now, is still in this same conversation that we're having right now?
I think goaltending is the most important position in any sport. And I do think that if Karel Vejmelka plays well, then Utah will have a very good chance at kind of closing out the stretch and being close in there. If he starts to get tired under this impressive workload, I think he's played 9 straight games now, which is very uncommon for a goalie to do that. If he starts to tire out, then they might need to rely on Jackson Stauber there, their third string goalie. He's been good, but doesn't have a ton of NHL experience, and so if something like that happens, I would decrease the odds a little bit. I would think, but as long as the milk is good and everybody else has plays how they've been playing in the last little bit here, I don't think they're out of the question in terms of the playoffs.
So, staying on this road trip for Utah Hockey Club and knowing that you're gonna have to give Vejmelka a rest at some point, do you schedule something in a game? Like, yes, you want 6 points out of the road trip, like you're talking about, but do you say, you know what, Edmonton's going to be the toughest of these 3 teams to beat, so let's make sure we get our points against Seattle. Let's make sure we get that Vancouver one, that 4-point game there, and then we'll put in Stauber against Edmonton and hope for the best. But that's one that is kind of an understandable drop if you do lose the game. Is that this is, even as I say it, I'm laughing because it's like, this feels like this is not how Bear Torden or any hockey manager thinks about things. But is it a possibility that you're forced into making that kind of a decision?
No, you're actually totally right. That is a pretty common strategy for teams going, where they need maybe 6 of 8 points or that kind of thing. It does happen quite a bit, and that's, if you remember when Jackson Stauber played his first game as a Utah hockey clubber, he played against Vegas on a back-to-back situation, and I don't remember who they had played the night before, but it was the easier team that Vemelka had played, and then Stauber had to play Vegas, the hard team in the Fortress, their home stadium there. That's really, really hard to go in and get a win there. And Jackson Stauber came in and he posted the first shutout in Utah Hockey Club history. It was a 6-0 win for Utah. I almost said Vancouver there. It was a 6-0 win for Utah, and it was the biggest goal differential that Vegas had ever suffered on home ice. And so, I think even in that kind of situation, like, you can put in your backup goalie and kind of schedule a loss is what they call it. But even then, like, there's hockey's such a close game within the NHL that anything can happen. And so, yeah, maybe they throw Stauber in for Edmonton. Maybe it's Buffalo. Maybe it's Tampa, one of these Eastern Conference teams that are coming up here. But I don't think that Utah would necessarily be in trouble if they had to go to Jackson Stauber for any of these games.
Ovechkin is gonna break the goals record this year, right? Still, I mean, he's what 9 away right now, 10 away.
Oh, I think it's like 7, 8, something like that. He's getting close. I mean, every day he seems to be scoring. Yeah, I think it's definitely this year that he does it. Had he not gotten injured in Utah, it would have been sooner too. Probably already would have had it.
Wild. We'll be witnessing history at some point, and hopefully some of the history we witness is Utah Hockey Club's first ever playoff appearance. It's going to come down to the wire. Brogan Houston will be on top of it as Utah Hockey Club insider over at the Des News. Brogan, appreciate your insight and your time. Thank you, sir.
Great. Thank you very much for having me. Have a good day.
So the official analytic, it's Utah's chances are up to like 26.6% to make a playoff appearance in that final wild card spot.
That's basically guaranteed, OC. Yeah. 26%.
I mean, look, if you're betting, if you're gambling on those odds, that's not bad, right?
Much better than, what was it, down to 12 or 14% a week ago?
A week ago we were talking about 12%. They had a 12% chance.
They doubled their chances.
So let's see. Seattle, Vancouver, Edmonton. And we already talked about maybe how you try to manage that. The 4-point game against Vancouver is massively important. You've got a couple of matchups against Tampa. Between those will be Detroit. You're on the road, by the way, for the second one. Then you've got Florida. That's a really tough team right now who did good things for themselves at the trade deadline, exploiting that salary cap loophole. You got the Blackhawks on the road. This is closing out March. And then in April, you got a 4-point game to start things off. Calgary is one of those 4-point contests. You got to stop them from getting points, and you've got to get the points. So Calgary above you right now in the standings on April 1st. That's on home ice. And you actually finish the season on the road, the regular season on the road, Tuesday, April 15th, with a trip to St. Louis. That's another 4-point game, at least if things stay the way they are right now. Of course, we just talked about how much they can change over the course of, like, I don't know, a week, 8 days, 10 days. It's been an absolute banana sandwich run for this Utah Hockey Club. They are playing great hockey right now. They are playing hard right now. You've got one of the best young goal scorers in the league, Dylan Gunther, continuing to kind of establish himself. You've extended his contract. You've extended Vemelka's contract. The team is healthy. It feels like we might be witnessing kind of a moment, not the moment, but a moment that when the documentary is made, just like, hey, this is when it really started for the Utah Hockey Club ahead of their 2027 Stanley Cup championship.
The Utah Mammoth is what probably they'll say.
They will say that.
Documentary.
Yeah.
In the documentary.
And people who don't follow it closely are going to be so confused when they see that championship Stanley Cup documentary and they go back to this 2024-2025 season and there's no Mammoth anywhere.
What's that Why is their logo a black puck?
Why is that logo just a black hockey puck that says Utah on it?
What's up with that? Yeah, you're right.
James, let me ask you this. Do you think that when the new sweaters are unveiled, you know how it's the diagonal Utah, the creative little diagonal Utah?
Yeah.
Do you think it's Mammoth diagonally or Outlaws diagonal? Do you think they stick with that theme?
No, I think it's just the logo, and maybe underneath Mammoth straight across. I
don't know.
Yeah, the diagonal look is good though. Could be maybe it's Mam logo Muth.
That would be the worst possible thing. Oh, that would be terrible.
They'd have to tip their face masks every time they walk by a woman, ma'am.
Well, that's if they're the Outlaws, because that's
right.
the whole cowboy thing.
You're right.
You really screwed this up for us, James. All right.
No, I am excited though with this win. It does feel like the playoff chances are back for Utah Hockey Club. Obviously, still long odds, 74% against you making the playoffs at this point, but it kind of feels like they're back in the race, OC. And I'm excited for it.
All right, I got an email from the Big 12 Conference, James.
Oh.
Uh-huh. You know what these things are.
Yes.
I actually also got an email from Keeler McJunkin.
Yes.
My inbox right now is Utah Athletics email, Big 12 Athletics email. Maybe we'll get to both of them.
We should. The one from our guy Junk. Should we just start calling him Junk?
Well, we got to ask him if he's
Keeler
okay with
McJunkin. Okay. From our guy Keeler, who we love his name, is very relevant to something that's coming up soon for Utah football.
You know what? We're going to find a way to get to both. Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 792.1 FM, proud part of Utah's ESPN radio network. Sean O'Connell Show. We're going to give away some tickets here in about, we'll make it 12, 13 minutes. As I told you before we went to break, 2 very important emails. All right? One of them from the Big 12 Conference, giving us a list of names who are invited and expected to participate in the Big 12 Conference Pro Day. It's like the little mini Big 12 Scouting Combine. We'll tell you the Utes on that list. But first, we have to give you a PGA Tour leaderboard update from the Players' Championship. This is brought to you by Uinta Golf. They've got the new Ping G440 driver, faster ball speeds, along with the Ping's game-changing forgiveness, of course. The G440 irons are designed for more distance and control and available now at Uinta Golf. What's going on at the Players' Championship, James?
Well, Lucas Glover is your leader OC at 6 under. Alex Smalley is tied for second, another American at 4 under, tied with Aaron Ray from the Danish, the Great Dane, Aaron Ray. I just gave him that nickname, by the way.
Great, you can call him that. Do you know that nobody knows why Great Danes are called Great Danes? Because they're not from Denmark.
Yeah, they're not Danish.
They're not
right?
Danish. They're German.
It's wild.
And nobody really knows why it's stuck.
I suppose Germany's not that far from Denmark.
Yeah, but it's like
still.
It's like, well, noted Idahoan James Peterson.
Yeah, exactly.
They're not that far away.
That's not that far away. Yeah, it's weird. It's weird. Got a lot of love for the Danes. I come from Danish heritage, so way to go there. Tied for second, Aaron Ray. Tony Finau, where's he? He'd probably rather we don't talk about it. OC, he's 4 over.
Oh,
that's good.
Tony.
Tied for 1/20th.
Oh, Tony.
So,
no.
Unfortunately, a rough start for Tony. He's going to have to do a ton of work to get above the cut line tomorrow at the Players' Championship. That's your PGA Tour leaderboard update brought to you by Uinta Golf.
All right. Love it. Okay. The email from the Big 12 Conference listing the participants in Big 12 Pro Day. University of Utah is sending the following names, or the following names are expected to participate from Utah football at the Big 12 Pro Day. And there's over 200 guys going, which I understand why this is good for the Big 12 Conference. I understand why this is good for NFL scouts because it reduces their travel very, very significantly. They don't have to come to every individual school, although most guys do like traveling to Salt Lake City. When you talk to scouts, they enjoy spending a day or two in Salt Lake, especially in the spring. But Van Fillinger, Tavita Fotu, Connor O'Toole expected from the D-line, Karene Reed, who obviously went to the NFL Scouting Combine as well, Miki Sugataraga, the tight end, big body tight end, more the blocking tight end. Junior Tafuna, of course, showed out very well at the NFL Scouting Combine. He'll have another opportunity to impress the scouts. Damian Alford, wide receiver, good measurables, but not a lot of production, so we'll see what he does at this pro day. Mekhi Bernard, running back, of course. Alakai Gilman, safety. Brant Keithy, no word yet whether or not Brant Keithy is going to be able to actually participate. Money Parks, wide receiver. Zamiah Vaughn, wide receiver. And these next two are the most important ones, James Peterson. Caleb Lohner got invited.
Wow. Yeah, we were hoping he would. Good job, Big 12.
You had absolutely yes, right?
Yeah.
Caleb Lohner, 4 for 4 touchdowns.
The big story with Caleb, what does this mean for his participation in the college basketball crown 10 days later?
Why are you like this? Oh, yes. The college basketball crown, the postseason, brand new postseason tournament that Utah basketball may or may not be participating in. Caleb Lohner he could still make it down there and play.
What if he gets injured in the pro
game.
day? What if he gets injured in the?
Hey, don't put that evil on Caleb
I'm
Lohner.
just saying.
But here's the thing: I think Caleb Lohner.
Season's not over yet, Caleb.
Caleb Lohner is that dude who a lot of pro scouts are going to be down there, and they're going to look at this. And by the way, the spring leagues are going to be down there as well. The UFL teams and people like that, they're going to have representation down there. They're going to have guys on the phone, and somebody like Caleb Lohner is going to jump. He's going to have a 38-inch vertical, and people are going to be like, wait, this guy had 1 year of football and scored 4 touchdowns on 4 catches? All right, maybe we should take a flyer on this kid as a free agent. Maybe we should waste a 7th-round pick on somebody like this.
Yeah, I mean, four for 4 in touchdowns, as you just said. And the scouts might be fooled by his stat line and go, man, that was a heck of a game he had.
Yeah.
That's the season. But no, 4 for 4 with touchdowns. And if he gets a great 40 time or something, maybe.
And look, he's an athlete. He can run.
He could.
So
maybe that is enough to make him a late round flyer. I would think, especially with the good performance at the Big 12 Pro Days, I would think that he's going to get some kind of camp invite.
He's absolutely going to get a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
A cup of hot chocolate.
And if he wants to pursue an NFL career, and the best thing he can do after these camp invites is be a practice squad player, he could certainly be that. But I would think that someone in his position, that's more about a desire to be on the practice squad rather than being able to be on the practice squad, I would think.
Caleb, can I tell you something?
Yeah.
Go be on the practice squad. Go make $500,000 a year
to
practice for 17 weeks, or it's more like 22 weeks, I guess.
And you never know what happens after that, too.
And by the way, there's not a job waiting for you out there in like the private sector that's going to be more gratifying or pay you more than that, okay? The other thing about this, James, and it's massively important to note this, in the NIL era, Caleb Lohner made some money as a basketball recruit more than as a football player, right? He got a free truck from the University of Utah, but like Caleb Lohner was a highly sought-after recruit and transfer recruit. He made some money as a college basketball player. It used to be if you were a guy, and we're using him as an example, but, I mean, any assortment of these individuals fit into the same realm here. Like a Damian Alford, right? An Alakai Gilman. These guys who are not obvious like day one, yes, you're going to make a pro roster. You know how much longer individuals who have, I don't know, a couple $100,000 in the bank as a 22-year-old, how much longer they can pursue a football dream than guys 10 years ago? So many guys came out of these football programs and basketball programs and were like, all right, well, I had a bad pro day. And no one is calling me. So that means I just got to go get a real job, because there weren't spring leagues back then, not viable ones. You could play arena football for $500 a game, right? You didn't have a nest egg for the most part because you hadn't been able to make money as a college football player. And so the real world came rushing right at you and smacked you in the face. I'm thinking about one of my best friends in the world right now. I'm thinking Jan Jorgensen, who for whatever reason was an incredible college football player, had no real opportunity in the NFL. He ran a bad 40 time, he had a bad workout, and nobody called him, right? I'm not saying that to twist the knife. I'm saying that because it makes no sense. If Jan Jorgensen was playing in this era of BYU football, he'd have been a millionaire when he left college. And even if he had to take the long road to the NFL by playing in the UFL, or if he would have had to take the long road to a practice squad or something like that, he could have at least given it a shot, because he wouldn't have had to be like, oh, well, I got a car payment. I better just start working. These guys can do things now that guys were not able to do 5 years ago because of NIL. I know we hate it for the most part, and we yell about how much it's changed things, and the transfer portal and NIL have been a poisonous mix for a lot of fan interest. But I'm looking at some of these guys who are not going to make an NFL roster this year and might need to go the UFL route and might need to look at other opportunities. And guess what? They actually probably have some money in the bank that allows them to do that, instead of just being like, well, I better call that bank manager that's a big-time Utes fan to see if he can give me a job.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's an angle of this that I don't think has been explored very, very much. When people talk about guys' pro opportunities, guys who are fringe NFL players at best, they have, a lot of them have a nest egg to be able to be like, I'm going to put off real life, quote unquote real life, a little bit longer while I try to pursue this dream still. So yeah, that's a big deal. And I would hope that guys like we use Caleb Lohner as the example, but there's others. I would hope that they would take that opportunity if they happen to be one of the fortunate people to have some money in the bank from NIL earnings in college.
Like Brant Keithy's not going to get drafted because of the injury history, most likely. And he's already a little bit older than most prospects, so he's going to have to take the long road. He's got the talent to be an NFL football player. I don't know if he'll ever be a star in the NFL, but Brant Keithy he should. I don't know if he does. I don't know if these guys just blew all their money or whatever. But Brant Keithy strikes me as a guy that's probably sitting on, a couple $100,000 of savings because of his NIL opportunities.
So he can afford to take a lower paying UFL job or spend the amount of time and money it's going to take to train to get into those leagues or get on a practice squad on an NFL team. Yeah, it's a good point by you. I'm going to throw out something for you that might get you excited.
Okay.
Your Niners just released Kyle Juszczyk and
Juice? The juice is loose?
Yeah, I don't know if you must have missed that. It was a couple days ago. They released the juice. Maybe Brant Keithy can be the replacement, a late-round flyer or undrafted free agent replacement for your Niners.
He has a very similar physical profile, not as good of a blocker as Juszczyk is, but that gadget-type player, big body, I love it. I like the suggestion, James.
I don't know if the Niners are interested because of the injury history, but if they were, that ought to be a place, a low-risk, high-reward place they could look, is Brant Keithy.
Last thing I want to note here, Dorian Singer is listed as a participant in the Big 12 Pro Day.
Oh.
And
so
it's not like a final announcement or anything, but Dorian Singer and the school and the team were exploring the possibility of him getting more eligibility and coming back. By all means, he should cover every base, and he should do this because it doesn't disqualify you from college participation by working out at this thing. Still, this is not a good indication for him being granted another year of eligibility, because if he knew or felt strongly that he was going to get one, he probably isn't going to Frisco, Texas, I guess it is, to participate in this pro day.
Yeah, you're
if he's coming back to Utah.
You're probably right. That we hope that's not the case, because it'd be awesome to have another year with Dorian Singer and with his brother throwing him the ball, Devin Dampier. But it doesn't seem to be a good sign for his chances to get another year of eligibility.
Okay, the other thing here, we got a message from Utah Athletics for the spring football schedule. So, good news and bad news. The bad news is that the assistant coach media availability is going to run the same time that our show is happening, James, which means we won't get to go and actually we won't get to conduct these interviews at the facility in person. But Thursday, March 20th, you've got post-practice media availability with select defensive players and Kyle Whittingham, Morgan Scally, and Jason Beck are going to be made available, looks like on a regular basis here. It'll be Coach Witt and defensive players, then Coach Witt and offensive players. In the interim, it'll be the coordinators, and you've got 2 practices a week, effectively, Tuesdays and Thursdays, leading all the way through spring football to the Saturday spring game, the Forever 22 game. Chairback tickets are $22. And perhaps more importantly, James, I got a message. We're allowed to call Keeler McJunkin junk.
Oh, he got back to you.
He said, "I'm good with you saying junk. I played football, basketball, and baseball through high school. That's always been my nickname."
Our guy Junk. Thank you, Keeler.
Thanks for the news, Junk. Appreciate you.
Yeah, and I'm probably more excited than most at that nickname, because were you a big One Tree Hill fan, OC?
No.
One Tree Hill. I didn't watch it when it was
WB?
going, or the CW.
Was it the C?
Well, same thing. I think it was WB
I think
before.
It was the WB back
WB
then.
at the time, but it's CW now. Yeah, I didn't watch it when it was on TV. I've binge watched it on Netflix and other places since. One of my favorite guilty pleasure shows, One Tree Hill, and one of the guys on the show, one of Chad Michael Murray's Lucas's friends is Junk.
Okay.
So there you go. We got a guy. I got a Junk in my life. I hate that. I shouldn't have said that.
We'll give away some tickets.
Sorry, Keeler.
We'll wrap up the show with a little crosstalk next. It's the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Two tickets to Volbeat, July 9th, Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater. If you can answer this question, 877-353-0700. According to the rumors and innuendo, a key figure in the Utah Athletic Department emerged late in the game to get the Alex Jensen contract deal across the finish line. a rumor, but one that I believe wholeheartedly. We talked about it at the start of the show, so you had to have been listening. 877-353-0700. Who was the key figure in Utah athletics that allegedly helped push this thing all the way to the finish line and get it done?
There may or may not be a movie made about it later.
Yes, we already storyboarded the most critical scene. So you're welcome, whoever ends up making that thing. Is Spence on the road today? Is he on remote?
He is in studio. He must just be in transit. We'll see if we can get him on for some crosstalk, but if not, we'll just hand it over to him in the drive.
That's fine. Final segment of the show brought to you by Burt Brothers. Spring into savings. Get your car ready for the season with $69 tires, $79 alignments with the purchase of 2 or more tires, $50 off service tickets. These deals are not going to last forever. Stop by your nearest Burt Brothers today. Burt Brothers does it better. Utah spring football right around the corner. We're a week away from the first practice of Utah spring football. We gave you the list of players that are participating in the Big 12 Pro Day, and I was remiss. I did not mention that JT Greep, the long and short snapper, the specialist, has also been invited to participate at Pro Day.
I wonder what the analytics say about which drill is best predictor for long snapper success in the NFL.
So you know what it is?
Do they actually show them snapping the ball? Do they actually have them do that at Combine and stuff?
Well, at these Pro Days, they'll do it. They don't get invited to the Pro Scouting Combine usually, but they do have to run down on kick coverage.
Come on, scouts, invite the long snappers too. They're football players too.
But you know what's wild now? Like it used to be in the NFL kind of like how good is your snap, but now everyone is so good at that they want somebody who can also run and tackle because you got to run down on kick coverage.
Oh, okay.
So being a long snapper, and JT Greep fits this physical profile, thankfully. But, like, most long snappers in the NFL right now are built like defensive ends or tight ends. They're, like, 6'3", 6'4 plus and, like, 250 plus.
Okay. They are football players.
They're football players.
Absolutely.
It's a very specialized position, but a lot of these dudes, you got to be, like, a big, strong, fast dude now I'm throwing up the air quotes, just to play long snapper.
Do they also have a drill where they look intimidating to the defender who's trying to rough up the punter a little bit?
What they do is there's a drill where because they're usually one of the first guys down there for the returner who's going to fair catch. So what they'll do is they'll test the volume on your ability to be like, trying to get him to like, drop it.
Decibel meter.
Yeah, decibel meter.
Whoa, he hit 15 decibels.
He got really loud. That might scare Britton Covey out of being able.
Tiny. He hit 100 decibels there.
He might be able to scare Britton Covey into dropping a punt here.
There you go. Hey, Britton, how's it going?
Hey, don't drop it.
I love playing with you, Utah.
That's what they're measuring. All right, we'll turn it over.
I think they probably overlapped at Utah.
They probably did.
Britton was there a long time.
As was JT.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they definitely overlapped. I'm going to say that definitively. Thanks to everyone who listened. If you were not able to catch the show live, find us on your smart speakers. Just say play ESPN. You can go to ESPN 700 Sports Utah on YouTube, on-demand section of ESPN700sports.com. You can find the Sean O'Connell Show wherever you get your podcast. Stay tuned for The Drive with Spence Checketts. James, great work today.
Thank you, boss.
Andre Miller's going to join us on the show tomorrow. Spoiler alert!
Woo! We'll see if he answers the question that everyone wants to know about. We'll see.
We'll see. ESPN 700, 92.1 FM.